not in the same way. And then we went into closed session at 6 p.m. to discuss personnel and labor negotiations, and came out of closed session at 6:25. So we're now into open session, and we start our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. And will Mrs. Reed lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance?
Absolutely. Please stand. Eyes on the flag. You may begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you for that. We are now going to have an executive summary on what happened during, what was actually discussed on our workshops. And are we having Mrs. Reed do the one on the contingency plan?
Thank you, Madam President. It was my pleasure earlier to address the board and prepare a workshop that really addressed contingency planning for the 2020-21 school year. And so during that, we reviewed feedback that we had received on surveys from our staff as well as our parents on emergency distance learning. We also reviewed 2 surveys that went out to both our parent community and our staff, our teaching community in specific, that looked at a potential change to our modified calendar and looking to see if we could have support from those 2 groups to push the start date of our calendar to August 31st. We then outlined in detail the work that we're currently doing through a remote teaching distance learning committee, which is comprised of 51 members of staff here without the district, looking at contingency planning for a traditional model, a hybrid model, and a remote teaching model that are all potentials for the start of the 2020-21 school year. And then we broke down this proposed subcommittees that this group would be working in: elementary, middle school, high school, secondary, special education, hybrid learning, remote virtual learning, mental health, and trauma-informed instruction. Then we also went through the survey results on reopening schools, and we were very excited to have over 5,000 total parent responses in that area, giving us their feedback at this moment in time as to their preference for reopening our schools. And then we also talked about the modified reopening of our high school athletics and visual and performing arts programs, which begins tomorrow on June 10th with CIF Sports, potentially returning in modified workout capacity beginning June 15th, really following the National Federation of State High Schools Association Sports Medicine Advisory Committee Phase 2 guidelines aligned with the Orange County Public Health Phase 2 guidelines. And so we walked the board through the multiple measures and protocols that we're taking to really maintain the highest priority of safety and health for our athletes and our coaches as we do this work. All of our reopening guidelines are also available for the public to view at our district website. And so thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Nguyen, would you like to give us a quick budget update, please?
Yes, so what the governors may revise our district for the impact of the LCFF funding will be deficited by about $33 million at this point. In 2020-21 is an $8.7 million deficit. In 21-22 is an $11 million deficit, and then it increases to $13.5 million deficit. With these additional deficits, due to the deficit spending we have had since about 2017-18, our total projected dollar amount that we needed to balance the budget is about $41 million. The board was able to review all the different additional line items that is required to balance this budget and gave us directions in 3 different areas. First is to for the retiree OPEB investment return, as the board has put aside the money in a trust, and we've been actually getting a very good return on that investment. We will be able to pull about $750,000 starting next year for the next 3 years. Additionally, the board has decided to decrease the deferred maintenance contribution by about $500,000 in each of the next 3 years. And finally, regarding the capital outlay projects, the board has now committed to reduce the $2 million contribution for each of the next 3 years as well. So with that, those assumptions and some additional assumptions that we have laid out, we will be able to present a budget to the board on June 23rd with a balanced budget at this point. Thank you.
Okay, Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. I would just like to say also to our public that the budget, California state budget, has not been passed by state law. It needs to by the 15th. And after the budget is passed through the legislature, then we get trailer bills, which are where the details are and where the impacts will really be felt. So we need to have a balanced budget presented to us next month, and so we're going to be having a balanced budget presented to us, and next month is when we will be reviewing it and hopefully approving it. Okay. After that, now we're on to the President's report. Thank you, Tina. Usually at this time of year, we have an entire slew of wonderful photographs and experiences to share with the public because of all the celebrations that we have been doing for our students. We have been doing a lot of celebrations for our students, but they're just done very, very differently this year than they have any year before. But we've had some really outstanding students be recognized in different fields, and I'm going to select a few of them and talk about them tonight. The first person I'd like to talk about is Andy Fong, who is the man in the lab coat and the safety glasses on the left of your screen. I'd like to let you guys know that last year Andy competed in the American Chemical Society's Olympiad exam, and he made within the top 11 students in Orange County, and he went to compete in the national exam. This year he competed again and he did even better. He was 4th in the entire county on our local exam, and then when he took the national exam, he was in the top 146 students in the nation. They don't tell you your exact number. And so this, well, I don't know why 146. I'm sure it's some kind of atomic number, and I just don't know what it means. This earned him a special award of honors on a national level. Andy is also really involved in this organization from the high school called Growing Up STEM. The club goes to our district elementary schools and puts on science nights activities. The night starts with a magic show in which one or two more of the high school kids put on a 15-minute demonstration show. Afterwards, the elementary kids break into grade level groups and go to a classroom. In each room, 5 to 10 of the high school students are there to lead the younger kids with hands-on science activities and learning. The club has been around for a few years, but this year they did most of their events ever, being able to go to 6 elementary schools. The high school kids do an amazing job of organizing, preparing, and running the nights. We really appreciate it, and we know that our younger students love it when the high schoolers come to their campus. So that's a very good way to impact future STEAM and STEM students. Another very large and happy and productive group on the campus is the Los Alamitos Drama Program. And every year they are able to participate in what is called the Chapter of National Student Critics Program, where they are judged by professionals. And this year, for one of our plays, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, which I saw and was fabulous, we have 4 people who were recognized. We had Louis Gallagher for publicity and marketing, Janique Clark for stage management, Hannah Thiel for lead actress, and Louis Gallagher again for lead actor. One of the things I really love about our drama program is it isn't always about who is the lead actor or actress. They frequently have student directors, students who set up lightings, how to make the stages. It's the entire ramification, the whole ball of wax, and putting on a drama production. So kudos to those kids and to Stacy Castelloni, who is the teacher. And the last thing I want to do is thank some local volunteers that started with Natalie Binder, who started with a group of ladies who wanted to deliver food to the ER and the ICU units in our city. And also, I love this, the Seal Beach Pavilion workers, because I go down there and they're there every day when I need food, and the Seal Beach Police Department. Well, they basically put out like a GoFundMe page and ended up with so much money that they had over $2,700 given to them, and then support from local residents. And so they went and delivered it to all the places that I mentioned. And then they thought, well, we have another place in our community that does a lot for everyone here, and it's our district office. And so they came up and they dropped off food for our district office and our auxiliary. Our auxiliary yard is like the forgotten child. It's where we park the buses. It's where the cafeteria in our food services has their administration there. All of our maintenance people are there. And it's because it isn't on a school site, I think sometimes people forget about them unless something happens and something breaks and they need them desperately. So I love the fact that they included our auxiliary yard, who always, those employees are always working during the summer year-round, trying to do things when their children aren't on the campuses. And then I also want to throw out that the Schools First Credit Union delivered cookies that same day, so they had, lunch and dessert, so it was great. So that is the end of my president's report, and I'm now going to turn it over to Dr. Pulver for his superintendent, and he's going to have to disinfect. Heaven only knows where I have been, right?
Thank you, Madam President, esteemed members of the board. Yes, we want to practice our safe handling as well, so thank you for the Clorox wipe. Just to piggyback on what you shared about Mrs. Binder and the Seal Beach community who wanted to support the essential workers, I think they obviously wanted to also recognize that school employees and district employees are essential workers during this time period. And the message, she said, we know at the school sites, really the PTAs often really take care of might be the wrong word, but find ways to really celebrate and honor our teachers and our classified staff, and that sometimes they wanted to go beyond that and to connect for some of our district office employees and the auxiliaries. So that was much appreciated. We're very thankful for that. So we're going to carry on with our superintendent's report. And I thought that it would be really important, as much as we spent over an hour on our workshop on the contingency planning, I thought it would be important. I hope that we have several viewers at home as well viewing the live board meeting. And so we wanted to just give an opportunity for the public to also get a little bit more information about our contingency planning for next school year. As you may have heard from last meeting, we said we have more questions than answers. That continues to be the case. We don't believe that we're going to have any firm answers. This could take, we could get into early August depending upon what happens with our school calendar, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So we just received the guidance from the state, but the guidance is very loose, very vague, and it's well over a week beyond the deadline when they originally promised it to us. So we're now waiting to get that operationalized through the county. And really, when the state creates guidance, they're creating guidance for, really, if you think about the 5th largest nation, if you look from an economy standpoint. So it has to get contextualized into our local community. And so we're waiting to get that from the Orange County Public Health Care Agency as well. And typically what will happen is the Public Health Care Agency will provide their health and safety guidelines, and then the county will provide a framework as well. However, that being said, we are clear there will be some local decisions, and not every district, even within Orange County, will operate the same way in solving how to have our schools open for next year. So while Mrs. Ray gave a summary of the workshop, I'm going to try to zero in on some of that as well, but we won't spend an hour on this. So, but as we are planning for the 2020-21, it really is trying to engage multiple stakeholders through different lenses as we take these plans. We're really looking at our parents and our community and engaging in them in thoughtful process and information, our teachers and our classified staff, our administration, and then obviously aligning those with the guidelines and or restrictions from state and the county. And so we'll layer on that with feedback of the school closures that our parents survey. I'm not going to go into that with my report. We had a detailed summary of the feedback of distance learning in our board workshop earlier. We will talk about our potential later start date. I think the public really does want to know, as well as our staff. When will we start the next school year? We've never made a revised calendar option for us, but I think under COVID-19, everything's kind of changing. And then we'll take a little bit a look at the reopening of schools for 2021. But again, it's really more feedback on the surveys, because if we ask parents for their input, we want to be able to communicate out what their input has been. And so probably the biggest thing that we're trying to tackle first, as we said, there are many layers to this, is the potential change in our calendar. And so we really engaged over several weeks conversations through our employee associations about getting their input, because some of it has to be negotiated with our employee associations, with our teachers association. It is a matter subject to negotiations. Within classified, it's not, but we certainly bring them to the table to at least be informed along the way. And then we wanted to survey our parents as well. And the overarching question is, would they support a modified calendar or revised calendar to have school start on August 31st, which is approximately 3 weeks later than was slated for August 5th for all sites except for Weaver. And so it was a very simple survey because this really was layer one. And so you see the two questions there. With our teachers, our teacher association, they voted, they got input from their membership, and from the LAEA survey, their members voted 75% to support the school's calendar being pushed back to August 31st. And in our parents, while not completely that at 75, certainly still a majority of 63% who support moving the start date to August 31st. We also layered in and we asked our administrators. I asked them before our board meeting today, so their survey ended on Friday, and it was 70. It mirrored actually our teachers. 75% of them supported wanting to move the calendar back to August 31st, and 25 keeping it. And so today during our workshop, we have pledged to the community that we would communicate by the week of June 15th what our start date would be. And so we wanted to get direction from all of you. We had some opportunity to engage in rich dialogue with you on that. And so the direction from all of you that we received today is to go ahead and now move forward operationalizing, because we still have to sign an MOU with our Teachers Association, so we can't announce anything official until all of that gets signed. But we have got direction that we will be supporting an August 31st start date for the school year of next year. And as soon as we can operationalize that with our Employees Association, we'll communicate out to families. We hope to be able to do so by the end of this week and beat our target date. Some of our elementary schools, their offices are closing just this week, and we'd love to be able to advertise on their marquees, et cetera, when their schools reopen. And of course, the school reopening is dictated upon the start date. So if you didn't see the workshop, you now have a little clue that we'll be moving forward with starting August 31st once we can operationalize that. And so I thought I would share a little bit more on the surveys. The second layer is we surveyed all of our families to get some preliminary results on, or their thoughts and input. And it's a snapshot in time of what they thought based upon the questions that we asked. We did say in the survey, we're not committing to anything, nor are we asking them to commit to anything. We just want to get their pulse on different questions. And so I'm going to layer that. We did talk about in the survey to families that really there could be 3 different models. And so in those 3 models, we identified them before they did the survey. We said one model would likely be, or could be, what we're already used to, which is our traditional school setting, students arriving to campus every day, no change to our class sizes, et cetera, normal recess for the most part. There could be some minor restrictions, but not a ton. A hybrid setting, which would mean that students would involve a portion of their day or of their week, depending upon how that gets layered out, with live instruction, in-person instruction, and another portion where it's done remotely at home through online. Sometimes you might hear the words synchronous and asynchronous. Synchronous means you're in sync with the teacher. Virtually asynchronous, which would be maybe you're pulling down resources, but the hybrid portion would probably be more asynchronous when they're doing the remote portion, and the live portion would be the equivalent of the synchronous, or a completely virtual model. And so those really are the 3 models, and you can really unpack all 3 of those in different ways as well. Ed Services has begun a remote teaching and distance learning committee. We are using the feedback that we got on our emergency distance learning. I just want to make sure that people do realize the emergency distance learning that we had to implement will not be what will be any type of program next year, but we certainly want to learn from that and use the feedback from that as we build what our program would look like next year. So we have over 50 members, teachers really, and administrators collaborating over this course of this summer. It's a summer work group. There is cost to that to continue to pay people to help us plan this out, really looking at contingency plans for those. And we're aware that some of these plans, as the school year unfolds next year, there could be guidance that occurs based upon what happens with or without an outbreak, depending upon who you listen to and what could occur, that may need to have some nimbleness to be able to move, that we are well set up already to go from a traditional setting, if we did go to that, to have to go into a complete virtual or remote, or from a hybrid into a complete remote, or vice versa. And so we're looking at creating plans for that. One thing that has become very obvious to us, we're going to need to adopt at least 2 models. We know we will have to adopt at least a virtual model for some families who are not going to feel comfortable any shape or form to return to an in-person or even a hybrid setting. So that's new news if people haven't heard that. We've talked about all 3, but we now know for sure we're going to need to provide that based upon the survey results. And then whatever that in-person model looks like, if it's the traditional or if it's a hybrid. And so we'll have to layer on more surveys, because at some point we're going to need to get our parents and our students to commit to, if they're going to do a remote learning model, because we'll have to staff that appropriately. And once we know those numbers, that will also tell us how many more students now do we have to take a look at to help lower the class threshold, et cetera. And then how many staffing we would put into our virtual program. So we, as I shared earlier, we got the release of the guidelines from the CDE, and then we are now waiting for guidance from the County Department of Education and the Orange County Public Health Care Agency. But I also want to reiterate that it was very clear yesterday from the State Department of Education, and likely will be from the county, that the guidance they give today could be different 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, et cetera. In fact, the state said this is just our first conversation, which for those individuals who are really looking for an opportunity to bring kids completely back into school, we want those. You would want to have time evolve and maybe see some of those guidelines and restrictions ease up, because right now they aren't quite there yet. And so the work that the group is doing, we've divided into various subcommittees that those 51 teachers and administrators will be taking a look at. Everybody will be on the large committees and then subcommittees as well. I won't read all of the subcommittees there, but everyone will be in the larger task force that you see in blue. But we're also going to be taking a look at special education. That is at the forefront of all of ours. We have definitely heard from our families, and this has been. It's been a trying time for all, but it's certainly been a trying time for our families with students with special needs. And so how we will be able to do that. I've talked with a number of families who even have concerns about the ability of whether or not their child has the ability to wear a mask completely. You know, they have sensory concerns, et cetera. So will there be flexibility from the guidelines there? And then we also know that it could be now almost 5 months that students haven't been engaged in live person instruction. Our students were engaged during the distance learning, so I don't want to say it's been 5 months with no engagement, but 5 months of live instruction. And so we do know, and just the mental health issues from our parents and teachers, we've heard that. So we are going to need to take a look as well, some trauma-informed instructional practices and the emotional well-being of students. So the committee will take a look at that, and then the committee could get bigger or expand bigger at times as they take a look to adopt perhaps some curriculum if curriculum needs to be added. Not if, curriculum will need to be added. So at some point we'll add more layers to that as well. So if we get to the parent survey, we are so proud of our community who really gave us rich feedback. We had, this is probably the most responses we've ever had in any survey. On our calendar survey, we had over 2,600 responses. And on this survey on reopening, we had over 5,000 responses. We did try to break it up differently, and we got kudos from many parents who said, thank you for making the survey different for K-5 than for 6-12, because they said, I would answer the questions differently for my elementary student than for my high school or my middle school kid. And so I want to thank Mrs. Reed as well for really having that foresight to make sure as we were crafting this survey, it really did take a look at that. And so the survey really started off from the least restrictive to the most restrictive. And it started off saying, if the guidance allowed, what is your kind of opinion now? Would you send your kids, if we could go into a traditional in-person setting with limited to no restrictions, what option would you choose of the three? And so 78%, both almost similarly at the elementary and secondary level, would choose an in-person option if they were allowed. And about 20%, give or take, where you are on the spectrum of elementary or secondary, would want to go into a full virtual option if everybody was coming back and returning to the campuses. And then from some families, we did hear some families earlier on say, if you do this or if you do that, we're going to pull our child from the district. So we wanted to go ahead and put that right out there in the parent survey. And so in this case, about 2 to 3% said they would remove their child and look for alternative education. So that as we go to a more restrictive, which the next restrictive would be a hybrid model, again, a little bit of a difference. More secondary seem a little bit more okay with the hybrid than at the elementary. But what we do notice is when you go to a hybrid model, it's about 11% who want to stay in a full virtual. So earlier it was full almost 20%, but now when you decrease the ratio of students in a physical room, it drops down. But what you also see, you suddenly see a spike from 2% to 11% at the elementary level, people who would really look into an alternative, maybe a private school or something along those lines for a hybrid model. And then face coverings continues to be something that we have to weigh in our decisions, both from the guidelines of the county and of the state. And so this decision really most likely could be relegated by the public health care agency. So it depends on if Orange County Public Health Care Agency says strongly encourage or must. A strongly encourage will give all of us here to have to make the way this decision, is it optional or is it required? If it's a must, there is no optional. That is what we're bound to. So a lot of that's going to be dictated by the science and the medical professionals in terms of which guidance or restrictions they provide. But we wanted to survey our families there, and 71%, give or take, 70% of the secondary would send their child if it was optional. Again, we see back about 23%, all the way up to 26% at the secondary level. They would just stay in a full-time remote, and it hovers about 5% who would withdraw their child. If it was required, you see a slight change there of now 70 to 78% would send their child to school. The virtual would dip a little bit back down to 18 or 15, but again, we see a bigger spike from some members of our community who say if you're going to require face masks, then they'll consider dropping. And again, you're seeing that more at the elementary level than you are at the secondary level. And so the next question that we asked families, if there had to be significant distancing restrictions during recess, during lunch, during passing periods, et cetera, would you still send your child? So same questions, you can kind of see the responses there. It's about a 70 and a 72 to 81 at the different levels. I'm not going to read every one for you. They're presented there for the public and for all of you to see as well. So we have very grave concerns about childcare and about child supervision if they're not at school. And so we heard that a lot from families, even during the emergency distance learning. And so we were able to successfully, and I think be a model for many districts who weren't prior, to provide childcare options for our families during our closure period. But we were able to do so because none of our classrooms were in use when everybody is home. And so we could spread out our students into several different classrooms and really lower the ratio. If we're on a hybrid model, then our classrooms, or complete in-person, then every single classroom is being used. What you're doing in the hybrid is you're using all the classrooms all day long. You're just putting half of the kids in the morning and half of the kids in the afternoon, or half of the kids Monday and Wednesday and half of the kids on Tuesday, Thursday, if in some model like that. There could be differences, may not be completely half. So 56% of our elementary families said that they could provide their own childcare supervision if they had to, but 27% said that they would need access or want access to district childcare that is fee-based, they would pay for it. Our concern is, would we have the classroom space or the physical space to be able to provide that if we're in a hybrid model? And then about 7 would access private childcare, but 10% of our families said so that they would not have anywhere. They would be worried to have to leave their kid unsupervised. And so if our childcare wasn't available because we didn't have the physical space to do so, that could be up to 37% of our students not having supervision during the school day, which is obviously a concern for everyone. At the secondary level, over 49% of our families said our kids don't necessarily need supervision at that time. However, I will say, I think sometimes we think that younger kids need more supervision from a childcare standpoint and that our middle school and high school kids don't. I would beg to differ. I used to be a middle school teacher and administrator. I come from a large family as well. A lot of nieces and nephews, 70 to 80 of them. And I would say that middle school and high school kids can often find themselves into some serious poor life choices when they are unsupervised at that age. And the stakes are much higher than sometimes than at elementary. So that is just another layer for us to kind of be thoughtful about. So I wish we had more answers. We don't, but we wanted to at least share the results of the survey and let you know what some of our next steps are. So we'll be developing an overview guide. The California Department of Education's framework is literally over 60 pages. So we're going to provide a Cliff Notes version to our staff that is on that committee. We will be providing regularly scheduled remote distance learning meetings with those committee of 51, and they're going to have their various subcommittees. We're exploring digital curriculum providers. So if we go to a virtual, which we know that will be one component, we will need virtual instruction, and so we'll be exploring different ones there. We will, at every board meeting until we open up school, this will be, we'll have a board workshop on this. So our workshops typically start at 4 or 4:30. So the public, I would encourage you to continue to all our, while we're closed and can't have public gatherings, we'll continue to post our board meetings on YouTube Live. Our tech department has been wonderful at adapting to that. And then we're currently awaiting the frameworks from the county and the public health care agency. So I did that quicker than the hour, but it still was a bit meaty. And then, I want to talk a bit about human relations and all of the stuff that we're seeing that is going on across this nation. Certainly, we are not immune to it here in Los Al. And it is just heartbreaking to see. And sorry, I was getting a little. A teacher reached out to me, Nadia Williams, and I really want to thank her for it. And I think it's important for us to have relationships with our staff, that they feel safe and comfortable to be able to talk. And we've been out of school for, I don't know, it's probably 2 weeks. And normally this might have been something that we would comment or talk about to our students. Staff would have conversations with students about what was going on in the nation, even with fair and equitable treatment, with Black Lives Matter, et cetera. And we didn't. We weren't really, it wasn't on our radar that if we should make a public comment. I think sometimes we were unsure, do we comment on political things? The school districts try to stay a little, well, some school districts try to stay a little out of the political fray. And Nadia called me up And I won't forget in the morning and really sharing with me how just as a woman of color, really struggling with what is going on with the community and asking, is the district going to speak out about this? And I had to be honest, and it had to be raw, and say, you know, it really wasn't on our radar. To publicly speak, it certainly was on all of our minds. I don't mean it wasn't on our radar, that we were immune to what was going on in the nation and locally as well. But in terms of having some type of a written response, I hadn't seen any other district respond either. So I really wanted to thank her for that. She shared various stories as just the pain that she's going through, and the work that we've done and her human relations that this board has committed ongoing. And if we really say we're about human relations, we can't stay silent. And I have to say that really rang true for me. So immediately I was able to, in different fashions, contact all of you to see if that was something that you would support if we were to try to craft some type of statement about what we stand for in terms of human relations and the issues at hand. We actually had some of our students who were organizing peaceful and thoughtful protest right near our campuses, and we certainly didn't hinder that process. And, you know, Nadia wasn't the only one. I've had a few parents who reached out to us as well, but Nadia really was the first, and by then we'd already gotten the wheels in motion. But it takes a while when you don't have a board meeting, and with the Brown Act, I have to have one-on-one conversations, and I can't tell you what another board member thinks. With consultation with Danielle Nava Maharez, who's our human relations facilitator and consultant, along with Bob Osman, who is just our communications TOSA, and myself. We really crafted a message that we shared with all of the board members to have their input before we sent it out to all families and all staff, quite honestly. And so I have it here. I'm not going to read it aloud, but I just want to, I'm not sure of another district who had every single board member sign it. And so some districts who had sent letters out, it came from the superintendent. I do know Long Beach, I take that back. Long Beach, I believe their Board of Education did. So I just want to say I'm fortunate to be able to work for a board who really practices what they preach. And if you say human relations is a priority, that you were able to put your name on this. And so it was well received by many staff and by many families, but by some it wasn't. And I certainly received emails that all of you received as well from people who said, stay in your lane. Why are you even talking about this? Why would you choose to make a comment on this? And I won't say all of them. And so, but I will say that quite honestly, we had a lot more outpouring of appreciation, of really just making people know that we at least take a stand and that we listen. And we wanted to be able to give some resources to families as well about how do you talk about race with your children, how do you talk with children about racial incidents, and even just some teaching tolerance from tolerance.org. And so I want to thank our consultant, Danielle Maharez, who actually helped us with those resources. One of the things that I realized, that we have our human relations webpage, and it talks about some of the subcommittees. We don't have any of the resources on that webpage. And so that is something that Danielle and I have talked about, because different instances will occur. And our website should be an opportunity for people to be able to find these resources down the road. And so that is something that we'll continue. We're updating our whole website platform. Some of you may not know that, but we'll be looking to put some of those resources for families that are there. And so unfortunately, the very next day, even after this, we started hearing from students who posted on social media about some of the painful situations and stories that they have had experienced. And most of them, I can't say I've been able to read every single one, but a lot of them talk about incidences more at the secondary level, but some talk about even at the elementary of opportunities where they've experienced either racism or prejudice or belittling or feeling less than from others, and really putting forth a message on social media and encouraging others to really speak up as well. And so I think we are, if this is work that we're doing, at times some of the work is going to be painful. Some of the work is going to be words that we don't want to hear. And yet we can't run from it. We have to listen with an open ear, with an open heart, with all of this work. And so I just want to say, and I know there'll be some public comments that will come forward, and again, it's not something that we shy away from. One of the things that we talk about as really believing in our hearts is that we want kids to feel safe at school. We want them to have at least one caring adult that they have access to in their school setting, that they feel safe and that they're not going to be judged, and that they can come and share if they've been a victim of something from another student or from a staff member or from a parent or from a community member. And so it's clear that some of our kids, at least from what they put on a post, doesn't feel like that they have that. And while not all of these incidences were reported to administration or to give us the opportunity to take a look at that, we want to create and foster a place. I don't want to be a superintendent of a school district that doesn't put kids at the forefront and wanting to make sure. And I'm so proud that this board really even artfully changed your priority goal to really talk about making ensure that we create the first word we used in that goal for the first time ever was just this year, was creating an inclusive, safe, healthy, and secure substance-free environment as well for our students. And so, you know, it's not always easy to hear some of the pain of students, but if we don't hear it, we also, it's kind of like when I talk about when Nadia Williams reached out to me about some of the pain, and if I didn't listen to that, maybe that wouldn't have pushed us to make in the same way, a statement. So sometimes hearing, at least from their lens, gives us a different approach and a different sense of urgency. I think we always have a sense of urgency, and I think sometimes there's a frustration when things don't get, we don't always understand the different layers. But I just wanted to make a few statements just because I think it's important for people to know that this is work that we care deeply about, and there'll be some who thinks it's cynical and some who will know the sincerity of our hearts. And that really message was going to be upon how others interpret it, but the sincerity I don't believe is in question at all from any of you, nor from myself, or from our administration and our staff. And I know Mr. Vlasic is here as well, who's really been tormented just from his heart. Not from a stain on Los Alamitos High School, but from that students at his campus could be feeling this level of concern and pain. And he has really been, he and his staff have taken many steps to continue to want to listen and have an open ear. So I just want to share a bit of some words that I wrote down just to make sure it gets communicated. But the last several days, we have been made aware of students and individuals who have taken to social media platforms to share their stories of racism, of prejudice, and of discrimination. We want, as I shared earlier, we really want our students to feel safe and connected at school. We want them to have caring adults that they can go to for support without judgment and without fear. And we encourage students to report any act of hate, any act of discrimination or prejudice, and to do so to feel safe that their message will be addressed. And so I want those individuals who may be watching tonight or maybe not, I want you to know that we see you, we hear your stories, and we're committed to ensuring, I go back to that goal that we've talked about, of ensuring an inclusive, safe, healthy and secure environment for students and for staff. This is ongoing work. Some of you have shared that we've been trying to tackle this work with even several years ago with Griffins with a Mission and other initiatives that we've had. But the work continues, and it has a new sense of urgency for sure. And it's something that I know that we won't waver from this commitment, even though it's not always the easiest thing to listen to. But if you really care about students, that's what grounds us. And so I think we will continue to move forward. Over 18 months ago, we furthered our commitment to working towards more positive and sustainable human relations throughout our district. We formed the Human Relations Task Force. You can look at our webpage to see the different subcommittees that we have tackled there. But I'll say we also learned that this intentional work requires time, patience, and grace. And sometimes it's hard to balance the time that it takes and the sense of urgency that is also needed, and also the time to see actual results, because you can put different things in place, but it's hard to change human behavior overnight, even when education and things have been addressed. So as we embark on this journey with open minds and open hearts, we understand the true meaningful outcomes will require humble recognition of missteps. We may make errors as we move forward. This kind of ooches and ouches, I think our consultant would say at times, that we have to be open to criticism, and we have to have a spirit of collaboration that really does embrace diverse perspectives. And so while we continue our journey, I want to acknowledge and uplift the work that has transpired so far, because I think sometimes it gets lost on some of the steps that we have taken, because it is a sincere effort on many individuals. And so under the umbrella of the Human Relations Task Force, we have developed and put into action social media guidelines that we have provided to all staff, and that might sound insignificant, but that was one of the big issues that had occurred prior, and so that was a resounding work that the Human Relations Task Force was charged with. We hosted 2 parent education nights focusing on courageous conversations and restorative practices. Approximately 80 administrators and teachers were trained in restorative practices. And then we did something we've never done. We kicked off the school year this year, in the 1920 school year, with our all-staff meeting with all classified and certificated, where we actually brought in a veteran anti-racist educator, Dr. Jeff Sapp, who presented to all staff to really help set the tone for our human relations work, focusing on how to make our schools safe and welcoming places for all. Our school sites have done multiple layers as well, and I'm not saying that means that there's not more work to do, but this really has been an ongoing collaborative effort. The High School Inclusion Committee has put in a lot of time over the past couple of years, really trying to listen to students and engage in thoughtful programs and opportunities. They've done their own parent education nights as well. We partnered with the High School Inclusion Committee as they hosted 2 high school assemblies with Dr. Tyrone Howard from UCLA, a leader in anti-racism education. Mrs. Reed met with Dr. Tyrone last summer, really trying to look at how we can provide different opportunities for training staff and different programs. And so we recognize the importance of teacher training. Dr. Howard presented at Los Alamitos High School staff during their fall staff development day, and it was so well received that really the Inclusion Committee asked, would we consider bringing him to talk to our kids? And we were happy to support that. Danielle Nava-Mojaras, our human relations consultant, hosted 10 professional development sessions for our teachers on social and emotional learning, conflict resolution, and creating inclusive classroom environments. We had unfortunately, we had more staff development training scheduled, but due to the school closure, literally we missed some of it by just a few days. Schools were closed on March 16th, and our second staff development day was March 20th. So the trainings that we missed in school closures was our large all-staff staff development Los Al Connects training, and some of the topics there was Dr. Howard and his team was coming back to be able to offer sessions on examining unconscious bias, examining implicit bias, that's a separate training than the unconscious bias training, and culturally responsive pedagogy. And I think that was one that many people were looking forward to as well, is how do we start taking a look at our curriculum and try to find some culturally responsive pedagogy there. Unfortunately, we weren't able to offer those sessions due to the school closures, but we do look forward to arranging new dates in the future. We also lost the opportunity. We had partnered with Orange County Human Relations in providing several no-hate training toolkits for various teachers across the district, which we were not able to participate due to the school closures. And then you heard me talk about the restorative practice training. We missed 3 of them. We only got to engage in 2, and the goal was to get every single administrator and multiple teachers trained on that. So we'll have to pick that work back up as the year continues. So we have more work to do. We remain steadfast in our commitment to diversity, to equity, and to inclusion. Los Alamitos High School administration is partnering with our human relations facilitator and consultant, Daniel Nava Mojarez, to provide space to further listen to our students, particularly those that need us to listen more, by organizing virtual community listening circles. And they've already taken steps to reach out to those students and invite them to participate. And so I want to thank Mr. Velasic and Mrs. Danielle Nave Maharas for helping us orchestrate that as well. So the board, administrators, and staff, I think one thing we are in all agreement is that our district is no place for any hatred or any ism that attempts to divide us. We are committed to creating a safe environment where all students thrive and have unlimited possibilities for their future, because that's truly what we believe in. Our motto is providing unlimited opportunities, and we want that for all kids. We want equity and access for every single one, and we want to be able to do that. And so I want to thank our youth for sharing their stories to help us. The sense of urgency is not lost on us. And so with that, that concludes my superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Pulver. It is a very challenging and difficult change to make in all cultures, in any culture. And as much as I think we do have a very supportive culture in La Salle, as long as one person doesn't feel supported, then we still have work to do. So I'm proud that we're doing this work, because we all know we cannot have successful children if they don't feel safe and secure in the classroom and on the playground.
I'm also really proud that we're not afraid, we're not going to sweep things under the rug. And so that this really is something that we're going to address. And we have been addressing,
Right.
but we'll continue to, that we're not going to turn a blind eye.
Right. And it's just so frustrating now because of COVID-19, how it's impacted how people react to everything.
Yes.
So,
But our staff's resolve to this work is, they're committed. So.
okay. Well, then we are now going to go on to the next item in our agenda. And this is when we have our formal recognitions. And this particular recognition is going to be presented by Dr. Pulver and Mr. Vlasic, the high school principal.
Thank you very much, Madam President. One of the things that we love to be able to do, that this board loves to be able to recognize, our students who have achieved various awards, but really the Eagle Scout or the Girl Scout Golden Award is something that takes a huge accomplishment of leadership, of providing service to their community. And so I want to thank Mrs. Speratos, our assistant principal at Los Alamitos High School, who said, is there any way, I know the board meetings are closed to the public, but could we find a way to recognize our seniors who have earned and worked really hard on these awards? And so Mrs. Speratos, our counselor Gail Davenport, and Mr. Velasic really were able to try to solicit from our seniors. And so we were pleased tonight to be able to recognize them. I think many of them will be watching right now, so we want to congratulate all of them. Normally, we would call them up to the podium. We'd have a certificate of recognition for them. We do have a certificate of recognition on behalf of the entire board that Ms. Tina D'Angelo will go ahead and mail out to these families as well. And so with that, I am going to turn the rest of the presentation over to Los Alamitos High School Principal, Mr. Chris Velasic.
Good evening, board, esteemed members of the board, President Catulli, Dr. Pulver, Cabinet. It is my pleasure to be here. I haven't been in a suit in a while, I have to say. The last couple months we've been in quarantine, so it is actually a little weird to have a tie around my neck right now, but it is my distinct honor and pleasure to represent Los Alamitos High School tonight and hopefully give honor and recognition to the students who have put so much time and effort into these projects to not only pour back into their communities, but kind of give us a little inkling of who they are as people, because I think a lot of these projects define who they are, give us an understanding of who they are. So make sure this is on. All right, so we have two Gold Award recipients, Genyss Duncan and Katie Reckere. The Gold Award recipient is for the Girl Scouts, and again, Genyss Duncan is one of our seniors, or graduating seniors. She's in Troop 1173. She created a ocean beach cleanup club to educate people on the necessity and the impacts of ocean debris and trash and whatnot that can collect at the beach and in the ocean areas. She held multiple outreaches throughout the year at the Seal Beach Pier, a couple at our campuses, and she also held a forum via YouTube for public service announcements. So Genyss was extremely active. I think this is almost a passion project for her, if you will, and she just wanted to serve her community in a way that was meaningful and lasting. And also, looks like the club is going to continue, so talk about leaving a legacy and a mark. Her leadership is going to continue with Maddie Lopez, a younger club member. So congratulations to Genyss Duncan, if you're out there watching. Thank you so much for leaving a mark on not only on our campus, but in our community and our beaches. Katie Reckere is actually a daughter of one of our esteemed elementary teachers, Karen Reckere at Lee Elementary. She's in Troop 442. Her project was based around Precious Life Shelter, and I think her heart looked like, or it tends to be for the moms and their children. So mothers that maybe have had young children or toddlers, her project was to create a program where reading to the children at a very young age was a priority. And so through donations, she was able to donate mini libraries for each of the units at the shelter. Katie's only a sophomore, so she'll be with us for 2 more years, so we're extremely blessed to have her for 2 more years at our school. But again, leaving a legacy and a mark within the community and giving back to others who might be in a tough situation. You know, if you're a young mother with young children at a shelter, obviously conditions and situations are difficult, so to be able to bring this service and resource to them is tremendous. So thank you, Katie, and congratulations.
Mr. Velasquez, I'm so sorry for interrupting, but it's only because Katie Reckere was one of my students at Lee.
Well,
Katie is graduating this year.
oh, did I miss? Oh, I misread. I'm sorry. She is. I'm sorry, Katie. You are graduating this year.
I have fond pictures of her that her mother has sent me of her in her cap and gown.
Slide. My mistake. My mistake. We have 8 Eagle Scout recipients, and as Dr. Pulver said, our counselor, Gail Davenport, did a lot of work in coordinating, getting the information from our students. Unfortunately, one student we didn't quite get the information from. That's Eric Kim. We do want to honor him tonight, but the other individuals were able to give us a little snapshot of what they did. Matthew Baldwin, Troop 642 here in Rossmore, North Seal Beach. His project was based on soccer balls that can't deflate. So it sounds like his heart is for underserved communities in Argentina. And so he raised money and provided over 100 balls to these communities in Argentina so they could play soccer, enjoy that game, and not have the ball wear out or pop. So he was over there for 2 weeks. It looks like he made friends that for lasting relationships through that experience, and he continues to serve his community through his project. So Eric Hassler, his project name, I love, is Speak for the Trees, Troop 642. He gave us a mural of Dr. Seuss's The Lorax to inspire kids to take care of the environment, and really looks like it spruced up that entire space for those young children that attend that YMCA there on Linden Avenue. So congratulations, Eric. It looks like it was not only a project that touched the kids' lives, but it looks like the community and the folks that work at YMCA as well. Scott Hassler. His project name is Music is in the Magic. He's in Troop 642. So obviously this gives you an indication that Scott is passionate about music and inspiring children if they have any musical inclination or ability to continue to pursue that. And so his goal was to give children a way to experience making music firsthand and hopefully propel them in that in their later stages of life. So Scott Hassler, thank you very much. Music is magic. It truly is. And having children have that experience at a young age, hopefully they matriculate up to our level at the high school and be able to continue that passion. Mitchell Hine, again, Mitchell is in Troop 658. He did a project based on at his church. He wanted to make his church more welcoming and a little bit of a safer place. So he took a 180-foot long rusty chain link fence and installed privacy slats. Looks like he upgraded that particular part. He mounted a fan and a smart TV to display the announcements, set up an IKEA cabinet, painted the interior. So he did a lot of revitalization and upkeep at the church to make it a safer, more inviting space for all the congregants there. It looks like he was able to raise over $3,300 to fund the project. And so he just did a lot of work in terms of fundraising and coordinating that effort to make his church a better place, and hopefully not just for himself, but the others that go to church there. Eric Kim, again, as I mentioned earlier, unfortunately we didn't get any details on Eric's project. No doubt it's as stellar as the other ones with the planning and the implementation. So Eric, congratulations. Sorry we didn't get your information in time, but we do honor you and we do recognize you. Ranyan McDermott, looks like his project was some time ago, back in November, at Park Western Place, an elementary in San Pedro. His goal was to, again, beautify the area outside the classroom and give some shade space. I think you guys are familiar that our elementaries love shade and need shade. And so when those students are either at snack or an outside activity, to be able to provide shade in the afternoon heat, especially today, I think it was about 95 degrees, is important. So again, that's going to be something that will not only improve the lives of students right now, but hopefully improve their experiences going forward and the staff at that school. So Ranyan McDermott, congratulations and thank you. Brian Rogers, he actually I did a project at a library that I grew up going to when I was looking through his bio, and again, he gave a pretty lengthy bio, but essentially what Brian created were tables for students to engage in the scientific method and the interactive process with PVC pipes and Legos. And so he consulted with the librarian there. That person gave him some ideas as to how he could contribute to the library. And so he built 5 sensory tables and 4 Lego tables. In particular, the sensory tables were built out of PVC pipes, and furthermore, cutouts are color-coded and alphabetized. So it looks like he put a lot of thought and a lot of detail into this project. And I love his closing statement. It says, achieving the rank of Eagle Scout is impossible without the support of your friends, family, and troop leaders. Eagle projects illustrate how the whole community comes together to make a difference in the world. Thus, I am beyond grateful for the amazing leaders and scouts from Troop 658 who guided me along the journey to earn scouting's highest achievement. Again, just giving you an indication of this young man's heart and who he is, and giving kudos back to those who helped him. So congratulations, Brian. Aristides Robanus, or Aris Robanus, Troop 657. His goal of the project was to beautify and soften the back wall of the church building. So he created these beautiful planter boxes that have now succulents that are growing, so probably a little easy to care for. Don't have to water them too much, low maintenance, but also a beautifying element at the church. And it looks like he took some time to look at the type of materials he was using. So he used treated lumber, low maintenance plastic lumber, and planted with drought resistant succulents. So he put a lot of thought into that, and hopefully those will be there for a long time coming. And if something happens to not take, you can always replenish the plants there and continue beautifying that area. So Eris, congratulations and great work. And that's the end of the presentation.
Congratulations to all of our Eagle Scouts and our Gold Award winners. I just love how the students have to put so much time and effort into coming up with the project for something that they're paying back to our community. We're now on to our next recognition, which is our Every Student Succeeds. Dr. Pulver.
Thank you, Madam President, team members of the board. We are so fortunate. ACSA, the California Association of School Administrators, or Association of California School Administrators, every year recognizes a student from every single district in Orange County of what we call as this Every Student Succeeding Award. And it's really awarded to students who've overcome remarkable odds and achieved various success in various areas. And so Sanjay was our district's recipient. And then they move it out from Orange County across the state as well. And so he was really recognized across the state as one of the Every Student Succeeding, and was featured in the ACSA EdCal newspaper as well. And so I want to call up Mr. Velasic, who will give us a little bit more information about Sanjay.
So Sanjay Gudikonda, if you're watching and listening with your family, first of all, we are so proud of you. Mr. Gudikonda, you have raised such a tremendous young man, a young man of true character, hard work, perseverance, and truly has such a purity about him and a humility about him when you speak to him. My first interaction with Sanjay was during registration. Was on the job very few days, especially with kids on campus. And so it was senior registration day, and Sanjay and his dad happened to walk by. And I was just greeting families as they were walking by, saying hello to kids, introducing myself. And Sanjay and his father walked by, and they said hello. And you could see the pride on Mr. Gudikonda's face as he spoke about his son. He gave me a look at his schedule. He pointed out the difficult classes that he was undertaking. And, you know, Sanjay didn't have a moment of anything but humility. And so he didn't speak of himself. He let his dad do all the talking. Every time you come in contact with Sanjay, he's more than polite. He'll tell you how his day is going, and he never has a word of complaint at all. He's just consistently positive. And so when we were discussing who to nominate for this award, numerous students came up, but it was unanimous that Sanjay would be the recipient of our award here from our district. And the purpose of the award is to really honor students at all grade levels, to be honest with you, and win the hearts of educators who helped them achieve their goal. And a couple things, we were looking for a student who had a strong drive to overcome anything that faced them, did well in school, and again, just a positive role model on campus, and he checked all the boxes in spades. And so he took 4 AB classes. He got a 3.9 GPA in those difficult classes, among many other accomplishments, and persevering through all those challenges. And again, beyond all that, the young man that he is going to propel him forward to whatever he wants to do. Really, the sky is the limit for Sanjay. And I hope his family hears that loud and clear from us as a staff and as a district. We're just bummed that we didn't get to honor him in the way that we typically would. At Bowers Museum, we had a breakfast that was he was so looking forward to going to, and he kept asking me if we were going to get it rescheduled. And we said, Sanjay, we're hoping, and it never did occur. But then we got the great news that he did move on to the state to represent the state in this award. So he won out of Region 17 out of 19 other districts. So Sanjay, congratulations. You represented us well. We're going to sorely miss you, but hopefully you come back and visit us, and we can celebrate maybe next year more appropriately. So, Sanjay Gudikonda, everybody.
Okay, yeah, congratulations, Sanjay. I usually attend that breakfast because this sounds horrible. I like to choose the fun things to do as a board member, and going to that breakfast, you sit at a table and you get a chance to talk much more closely with a student, their parents, sometimes siblings, teachers, principal, and it's just a very warm, fuzzy, wonderful celebration, and I'm sorry we didn't get to have it this year. Okay, we have one more recognition, and both myself and Dr. Pulver are going to present, and we didn't practice, so who's going to go first?
I will start and let you do most of it. How about that?
Okay.
Because this was going to be part of Mrs. Catulli's board report, but we actually thought if we did it part of her board report, we really wouldn't give it the same recognition, the public recognition, even on our board agenda, which we just truly want to thank all of those who were responsible for putting on the senior parade. And I have to give the shout out to RHA, that they really are the ones, and Joe Shea and her team, and then we'll see various other people who really thought about this, worked closely with Los Alamitos High School. They knew that our hands were tied in being able to do certain things for students, so they wanted to take on the risk, the liability, the potential. If some people didn't think it was a good decision or not, they were wanting to take the heat for that. And I can't tell you, it came at a time for the public and for our graduating seniors and their families, when we needed something to celebrate, and to just have such a positive sense of hope, and just coming together. And this was a community coming together to recognize our seniors. We had, normally our senior graduates will go down to every elementary school if they were with us at the elementary level, and they really impart some wisdom and just a sense of pride to all of the elementary students, and our teachers love seeing them return. And so the fact that they were able to navigate through at least 4 of our elementary schools, and our other elementary staff came to other parts on the parade so that they could also really recognize and cheer on our students. And you know, they got permits, they coordinated with the law enforcement, they did some press. And I talked to several families who said, you do realize now this might have to be a new tradition. And Joe said, no problem.
Oh, wow. I did ask Joe, she was in charge of Amazon. And
Yes.
she said no, but she used to do the St. Hedwig's Carnival, so I thought it's close enough.
Yes. And, you know, they did not have to, but they really gave deference to all of you. So while they really sponsored this, they asked all of you to be up on the, I call it a stage, it was a truck bed, and allowed you to speak. They thought of every detail. Students were not supposed to be out of their cars, obviously making some fine-tuned decorations to their cars, but they got it to be addressed on a radio station, so that they could hear the information directly in their car. And again, I heard from parents who said, wow, I don't know if I miss going to StubHub. This might be 3 hours in the hot sun.
Yeah.
And I talked to another parent who said, you know, I was so worried that with COVID and the school closures that our seniors weren't going to get something. And all the different activities that the high school and their staff and their team put on, and ASB students as well. But also this community really came together. And so with that, Meg, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about anything further and all of the different people who were involved in this. And I'll give you.
So you want me to read a list of names? I don't think I'm going to do that. No, why don't you just click it from there? What is coming up on the monitor next is going to be a list of the people within the community that provided assistance to get this off the ground. But it was really, it had so much planning and it went so well. You can't forward it? Oh, there it goes. Thank you. I think Tina did that. You did that. All these people had to work because they all came together. We were parked behind the Home Goods parking lot, and we had a way for the kids to line up. They had to try and figure out, okay, we have 739 seniors. How many kids are actually going to show up? And theoretically, 1 kid per car, but there were some cars that had more than 1, but that was fine. And so you had to find some place where you might have to park between 500 and 700 cars, and how to get them to line up. And then everybody went ahead and decorated them. And so they had to coordinate not only with insurance, but they had to coordinate with both Seal Beach and Los Al Police. And because Rossmore's unincorporated, the Orange County Sheriff. And then they also brought in the Highway Patrol. And again, the 2 cities, the city of Los Al, the city of Seal Beach, because these are all of our kids. The kids were so well behaved. They were so joyful. They got to celebrate the fact that they have completed a true hallmark in their life. They didn't get the official handshake, smile at the camera, and walk down the steps, but the kids that were there, the smiles on their faces, I'd see the kids that would be like leaning out the car window, but you're only going 2 miles an hour, so you're probably safe. The kids in the back of trucks, popping out of sunroofs. I was standing by Hopkinson, and the teachers were going, I had that person in second grade. Oh, that was my fourth grade, and like trying to identify all the people. It was such an incredibly joyful, celebratory event. And I cannot thank all the people who worked to pull this off, because it was the amount of work I can't imagine. And I thanked Jo so many times, and she just, that morning, and she just kind of went, oh, I had so much help, but I'm thinking organizing that many helpers is a lot of work. So I just want to, I cannot say it again, I can say it again and again, because that's all I'm doing, is that this was an idea that a person had, and she ran with it. And it was a full touchdown as far as I was concerned. So I just thought it was fantastic, and we really wanted to take the time tonight in a more formal way to thank everyone who worked on this parade, because it was fun, it was wonderful for our seniors, and thank you to our community.
I'm also pleased, Joe Mendoza, who's the manager for our CSD, they also have their meeting tonight, and they are also recognizing many of these same individuals and doing a proclamation, or like we do our certificate for those that really spearheaded that. So the community really came together. It was great. Our transportation department did a great job creating a cap and graduation cap on the top of the bus. And one of the things that I found myself really wanting to do when they asked Mr. Vlasic and I to be in one of the lead cars, and I was compelled, because I initially thought I'd get out at a school site, because I really wanted to cheer on the students, because that's who we were there for, rather than me being cheered on. But what I quickly realized while we were there, because I was going to get out at the first school site, was I found myself compelled to want to thank every single community member who stepped out of their house and onto the street from as much as they could social distance. And I just kept saying to all of them, thank you for showing up for our seniors. And so I really felt that it was my job as well to really thank the community who showed up. So that when we came back to the parking lot, I congratulated the seniors as they were driving by. But to also really have a thank you to this community who found a way to make something really special, something that I know our seniors will not ever forget. So thank you not only to all of those who planned it, but just those who physically showed up, because sometimes how we communicate our priorities is just our sheer presence. And I attend Zoom meetings with people all across the county, and everyone talks about what are they doing for their seniors and their virtual graduations. And I just told them, I said, we just totally trumped you. I said, this was fabulous. And some of them are they said, oh, well, we're going to do a parade too, but it's more like a parade into the high school and then out. And I went, oh no, as if I really did anything. I, cheered everybody on. But it was so wonderful that we could do something so special for the class of 2020, because they had the most unusual high school senior year in history. And hopefully they'll just keep that, and we'll never have a repeat. So this is usually when we have a recess, but I think we're going to forego the recess since we don't need to take pictures for anyone. And we're now into community and staff participation. Tonight we do have people who want to participate during our community and staff participation. Our meeting is closed due to the distancing and the number of people we can have in the board meeting. But I believe we have a couple of people who want to call online, and we're going to have all of the written comments read. So first of all, I need a discussion and a motion, because usually our community and staff participation is limited to 30 minutes. And I have a feeling that we might go over the 30 minutes. So I would like a motion to extend our community and staff participation agenda item until everyone has been heard.
I so move.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we just need to do that because it's part of our board protocol. And I'm not sure where we go from here. This is new to me too.
Thank you, Madam President. So we do, as you've shared, we have two individuals who expressed the desire to call in, and so Mrs. D'Angelo is getting one of them on the phone shortly, and then we'll call the next one. So
Okay.
they'll be able to, they still will have their 3 minutes, and then all the others have produced their public comments here, so I am going to go ahead. Mrs. D'Angelo will read them aloud, but I want to give you a hard-written copy of those as well, so that everyone knows the board has actually physically seen the written comments in addition to hearing them. I do want to add one of the things that I have instructed Mrs. D'Angelo is if there is the N-word that is written in any of these comments, that we are not comfortable saying the N-word, so we will use the N-word, that statement, as opposed to actually saying what might be written. So that should be the only edit that we have made, just out of our own personal comfort of not
Okay,
wanting to
and
offend.
I would just like to add, if people are talking or addressing a non-agendized, I don't have one.
Okay.
A non-agendized item, it is illegal for the board to make a comment or have discussion about it. It has to do with if you're having an open meeting, you should agendize what you're going to talk about, and then people who are interested, they can come and address the elected body at that time. So if it's not agendized and we talk about it, we are in violation of state laws. So I don't want anyone to think that we don't care, that we're asleep, that we don't pay attention. It's just that we legally cannot make comment on non-agendized items.
That's part of the other reason why I wanted to be able to at least address it in the superintendent's report, because I do think people would like to have heard something, at least an acknowledgement, and so we tried to address that a little bit in our report. So at this point, we'll turn it over to Mrs. D'Angelo, or do we want to wait 2 minutes? Because I just realized we have a board member who probably had to step out. I hear they're probably coming. Well, if we just wait a little bit. Okay.
Okay, we have our first one. It's Savannah Arakawa. I'll put her on. Savannah, you're on.
All right. Hi, I'm Savannah Arcala, and I just graduated Los Al High, and I've prepared a statement. I first want to thank, first the statement is about recent events, and as Dr. Pulver stated, the experiences that he's been notified of and the board has been notified of. So I'll begin my statement that I wrote. I first want to thank the teachers and faculty who I've met throughout my years while growing up in USD that have made a welcoming environment, not just for me, but for a handful of other students as well. I also want to specifically thank teachers, faculty, and those on the inclusion committee for working hard and diligently to counter any discrimination on campus. But I and so many others can't help but feel that their efforts and that the students' efforts are at times being held back by the lack of action from the school administration. LAUSD has a long and strenuous history of discrimination, whether it be from students or even their own faculty. I'm sure that the administration is fully aware of the Instagram account called LAHS Can't Silence Us, and the petition made by a current student calling for stricter consequences for discrimination. From the Instagram account, you can find numerous experiences from students and teachers who have reported incidents that have been ignored or put down from teachers and other faculty who are supposed to protect and help students. I also have personal experience myself with being ignored, facing discrimination throughout the years, and witnessing my friends face discrimination as well. It was never addressed or resolved. Recently, the school did address discrimination on campus with Assembly on Racism and other workshops afterwards, and I'm glad that happened and that's a step. But of course, there's more work to be done, as Dr. Pulver stated. All schools under LAUSD must reprimand students for racism, homophobia, anti-Semitism, and all other facets of discrimination, because so many incidents I have witnessed and experienced have been ignored, and I feel that all students who commit these acts must be held accountable, because so many students feel unsafe on LAUSD campuses, so unsafe that a handful have had to transfer students or transfer schools, and I have recently been made aware that the school was even sued from an incident in 2013 due to the lack of action, and that's unacceptable. And of course, as Dr. Pulver stated that earlier, that the staff have been having anti-racism training, and of course continue that. I think that is very vital, and I'm glad that that's happening. But there's also reports about teachers and faculty that have not been taken seriously, and I feel that they have been brushed under the rug, which happens a lot at Los Al High. Because there are many incidents being reported on the Instagram account that I mentioned earlier about teachers being racist, teachers bullying their students, and even being inappropriate towards students with sexual comments. And thirdly, and I think this is also very vital, that students need to specifically be educated on these issues so that the past is not repeated. And we need classes on African American studies, LGBT, and other classes about marginalized groups, POC. We need more than just European history class or military history class. Education is key to counter ignorance. And this isn't political. Kids and faculty need to be educated because all types of students attend LAUSD and all of them should feel safe and welcome. And administration must take action because the school board before you guys and the board before them and so on did not do enough. And you guys need to do something and do it now for the sake of current students who feel unsafe, scared, and alone. And I have hope and faith that the district and its current leaders will attend to this issue with urgency and that more action and change will be instilled. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate hearing from students. We're in the process now of getting our second phone-in speaker.
Hello, sorry. Hi, my name is Bianca Chain, and I wanted to address a number of things that are issues with the Los Alamitos School District, and one of them being that mental health with students isn't addressed enough. A lot of students struggle with mental health issues, especially due to bullying and racism, homophobia, transphobia, and numerous other things that happen at school. The fact that faculty do nothing to stop this, they say that they will but don't. But the biggest problem is that students are getting hurt by this, and this is a safety issue because if your students themselves or killing themselves, it's not going to reflect well on you guys. And I know you guys care a lot about your reputation, and nothing is going to change if we don't start addressing issues that hurt students constantly. I know you guys don't want to get into politics, but honestly, if your students are being hurt by other people who are putting them down just because of what they look like or who they really are, it's unfair to those students. Students are constantly bullied and berated at school, where school is supposed to be a safe place for them to be happy. And they deserve happiness and a safe place where they can go, even if they can't be themselves at home. Discriminatory behavior at school from faculty and students is unacceptable, and there needs to be stricter consequences for people's actions because a lot of our schools claim to be no tolerance in the Los Alamitos School District, but they aren't actually no tolerance because they still continue to disrespect and disregard the statements made by people of color. Not only that, but also kids who are gay, kids with disabilities, women, trans kids, it doesn't matter who they are. People are not addressing the issues well enough, and it's a big problem because students can be upset and they can be hurt and they can be scared, and they're not going to go to faculty if they don't feel faculty understands them. And if faculty that is responsible for keeping students safe and making sure they feel heard is not actually listening to these students, they will never come to you for their problems. And that's it. That's all I have to say. I hope you guys take more seriously the issues that happen on your campus, on all of your campuses, not just high school. And it's not just a high school problem, it's an everywhere problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in. I appreciate your taking the time and effort in speaking to us because we are very happy to hear you. Oh, we have one more? Okay. And we're calling one more person.
Carson. Hi, this is Tina from the Superintendent's Office, and you're actually in the board meeting right now, so I'm going to put you on speaker, and you have 3 minutes to speak with the board. Thank you. Carson?
Yeah.
Okay. If you introduce yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Carson Rodriguez. I am a student at Alamitos High School. I first just want to thank the district for letting me speak at this meeting. Thank you for the time. As all of you know, the past 2 weeks have been very eventful, and not just around the world, but in our community, and I want to speak about how this affects our community. Nothing I say in this demonstration will be sugar-coated, because these are real problems that need real solutions. I created a small poll on Instagram that surveyed students that go to La Salle. I asked them 5 questions. The first question was if you experienced sexism at La Salle. I got 89 responses, with 72% of them saying yes. Have you experienced homophobia and transphobia at La Salle? 81 responses, 59% said yes. Racism at La Salle. 83 responses, 70% said yes. Have you ever felt unsafe? 88 responses, 69% said yes. Have you ever seen or heard any of this stuff? 89 responses, 97% said yes. I hope you wrote these numbers down, because even if all these answers had a 1% answer of being yes, that is a call to action, and that is a flaw that needs to be changed. I've had my fair share of experiences with all of these. And I'm not going to get into it now because that would take a long time, and I'm sure so many other people would love to share their experiences. But I propose proper training for any current and new employees that are employed by the district to go under training to handle situations for people of color and the injustices that females and people who are of the disabled to get the proper justice that they need. And I demand that we will also make a punishment system for those people who defy all this to be reported, because too many of people that have been reported have been swept under the rug. If that means that La Salle will have a now dirty record, so be it. We want to rid our school of the toxic environment. I have learned to come to school every day. And I want justice for my friends and for anyone who has to go through this. And I urge everyone to educate themselves on this problem of systemic and systematic racism and oppression in our country and our community, because it is your privilege to educate yourself rather than experience it. So I ask of you, what are you going to do to help our community, to help all the schools in your district change? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate you taking your time and calling us and speaking to us on this matter.
So once again, the remainder of the comments, all of you have here. Ms. Tina D'Angelo will go ahead and read them out by the name who's presented them and read their submitted comments.
Stephanie Tizell, asking the board what exactly they have planned on doing to make students of color feel safe, heard, and how they plan on hiring a more diverse staff. And I'm sorry if I don't get the names correct, the pronunciation. Ngaya Pathag. Sorry.
It's Angana.
Angana. As a member of the Human Relations Task Force, it is so disheartening to read what we have been hearing for years. We are now reading stories from scared children who up until now have been silenced. My hope for the Board of Education, especially the members who have been on the board for multiple terms, is to take responsibility for the administration's failure to appropriately confront, discipline, and educate on matters of race, gender, sexuality, and discrimination. This kind of stuff does not happen overnight. This district has been known to care more about perception and accordingly didn't want to confront these systemic issues. Winning choir competitions and getting high AP scores are not the only determinants of a great school district. Maybe we should stop showing these videos with token minorities being so happy, because it does not reflect the hardships of those students who are suffering the ill effects of discrimination. It is appalling. It is time to take responsibility for how these unfortunate children are being treated in our school district. One avenue of potential change is in hiring practices for administrative positions. The overwhelming majority of instructors and administrators in our district are white. My hope is that we can start hiring people of colour from the outside of our district and put them in positions of power to start the process of change. It is obvious that our way of doing things in the district is not meeting the needs of a diverse population of students. If you want to make real change, then hire people who know how to do it and stop empowering people who do not understand the need for change. Hire a person whose sole responsibility is to address diversity, human relations Caesar, if you will. There's no way my children will attend middle or high school in this district if this kind of discrimination remains. I care about my community, so I'll remain involved to help make change. However, it is time for you to listen, learn, and make a serious commitment to implementing reform. I'm grateful that Dr. Pulver has allowed the Human Relations Task Force to remain, and I hope you understand the importance of this committee. It is only with a collaborative effort that we can tackle this critical task. The time for a commitment to this process is now. Rebecca DeSoltel. Our school system is discriminatory and does not provide proper consequences. Personally, I've been put in multiple dangerous situations by a teacher. Being catcalled by a teacher, being threatened by a student, which a teacher was aware of and did nothing about, and had another student make inappropriate comments to me every day, while at least 3 teachers could hear. Kaya Householder. Schools should feel like a safe environment for everyone, but that is just not the case here. Change needs to be made. School needs to be a safe place for me and my peers to express themselves. Kenyon Clark. If you want a solution to the racism occurring throughout Los Alamitos Unified School District, even at the middle schools and the elementary level, the obvious solution would be to educate students. This does not mean some optional club that students can go to, but an institutionalized class such as an ethnic studies class. As a black student, I would prefer an African American studies class given the recent events. Racism I have seen in my experience with learning whitewashed history, which failed to explain the major role black people played in the creation of the United States. This lack of education on black history has directly led to the racism insensitivity at Los Al. Kids should start learning about race relations as early as elementary school. And I do not say that they are too young, because 5 years old black children have a better understanding of racism in America than some teenagers I've encountered at Los Alamitos High School, due to the fact that black children have to learn the truth at an early age or their lives could be at stake. I, along with Mrs. Reckere, tried to introduce an African American studies class this past year, but I was shut down because the high school didn't have enough resources. I don't know if this was because of costs from construction or because prices of Los Al's so precious football teams' uniforms, but if you guys actually cared for your students, you would invest in more teachers of color, especially African American, and also listen to your students trying to push for change. But because an African American studies class may take a while to introduce, the least you guys could do is to create infinity space. The high school is under construction and there are no designated places for people of color. Sure, there are safe classrooms, but these classrooms are so random and rarely known to students, giving no opportunity for students to actually connect to people that identify with them. Another good idea at the high school level would be a student panel filled with students of color in order to run ideas by. There may be an ASB, but as a student, I have felt that they do not speak for the common student, evidenced by the lack of changes I have seen across my 4 years of high school. This panel is also when racist, homophobic events that have always seemed to be happening at Los Al occur. This panel can help bring attention to these events and also assist with decisions on how to diminish bigotry on campus. Along with this panel, I would also suggest connecting with more Black Student Union on campus for a similar purpose. I have heard of many instances where students have come to the administrators with racist, homophobic experiences but have been brushed off. Listen to your students. Carson Rodriguez. Oh, we had him on the phone. Julie Chad. Please address upcoming school year. Michelle Ematiro. When I was in school, I recall being taught that during Reconstruction, freed slaves were promised 40 acres and a mule as a necessary means for a livelihood. What I don't remember being taught was the betrayal that came when an overly racist president, Andrew Johnson, took office, renegade on the promise. Thus, freed slaves were forced back into slavery-like working conditions. Of course, education has come a long way since I was a child, and I hope my children are learning more truths than I did, but it still has a long way to go. For an example, on one hand, I am proud to know that this school district taught my son about atrocities committed by Christopher Columbus. He came home and told me about the importance of celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day. That is progress. But on the other hand, the bulk of his diversity education happens in the home. That is fine while he is very young and still happy to learn from me. But what about when he is a teenager and receiving conflicting messages from peers? Or what about the many homes where diversity is not talked about? Not only, but given that this issue finally has the spotlight, I expect this young generation to learn so much more, not be limited to what previous generations have done. Cole Masuno. I have never once felt proud to be a graduate of Los Alamitos High School. My experience as a student felt like a slow euthanization for many reasons. Racist attitudes were pervasive among the student body. The absence of concern from the administration underscores Los Alamitos High School's failure to represent the diversity of their student body, and beyond that, reveals their inability to provide an inclusive space for education. Students find ourselves bound together by a common understanding that denial extinguishes the chance for equal opportunity. It has been difficult for me to have faith, let alone trust a school district who will endorse immature adults. Not all, but there are instructors who take joy abusing their authority and power. Piper Brookalary was my Algebra 1 teacher in 9th grade, and her public degrading of students extinguished any excitement I had for the subject for the rest of my academic career. What otherwise would have been an enjoyable and enriching year for some turned learning math into an unenjoyable, uninspiring, and draining experience. She displayed the most unacceptable behavior as a teacher. I noticed how she bullied other students to the degree to which students who were ridiculed and were utterly defeated. She possessed no sympathy for those who struggled with the subject. Instead, she made them feel like it was their fault and was dismissive of offering any guidance. Comparing her to the performance of other instructors I have had at Los Alamitos High School, she miserably fails to match their honest and supportive engagement with their students. The lack of attention and care given to her students left a weak impression on her as an instructor. This style of teaching further perpetuates the negative stereotypes of dismissive administration of the Los Alamitos Unified School District. Public humiliation is not how lessons are taught. It is how spirits are crushed. Her immature behavior shows that she lacks the human capacity to treat others with respect and is incapable of nurturing curiosity. I remember requesting to be placed in another class, but I was not encouraged by the student councillors to complain, as if my voice and experience couldn't be trusted. To all faculty and administration of the Los Alamitos Unified School District, if you can't imagine what an annihilating experience it is to be bullied by an adult, reconsider what your purpose is. I have never been more disappointed. As I read countless stories, to know that I wasn't alone is illuminating, yet equally heartbreaking to know that others share similar experiences. Everyone has the opportunity to reassess their opinion, and it is vital for Los Alamitos High School to reconsider their motivations nurturing students' success. Alex James. Hi, my name is Alex James, and I am an alumni of Los Al, class of 2017. Recently, I made students' behavior towards their peers and racial incidents at Los Al Public on social media. I have gotten hundreds of messages with stories that stem back to the class of 2010. What I posted did not scratch the surface of what I could have shared. I read stories of trauma, some seeking therapy because of racial violence, homophobic violence, and sexual assault complaints, at the school. I am turning 21 years old soon, and as I continue to excel in life, what happened in the district lingers in the back of my head to this day. I cannot move forward when this is still happening to students in 2020. Although many students perpetrated this violence, Los Alamitos High School is an accomplice. You are all an accomplice to this violence. I have been sent disgusting photos that were pushed under the rug while I was attending Los Alamitos High School. These photos include swastika, the N-word, and even a picture of the separation of water fountains being labeled color and white. It is, negligence that the district never released a statement on something that could have been dangerous for Black students or other students of color. I unsubscribed from your email list because I cannot stand to hear your blatant lies and fake unity. However, I was sent an email from multiple sources of Los Alamitos Unified School District pointing out that your person of color student population is 56%. If you're aware that 56% of people of color make up your school, why are you neglecting dealing with racism towards these students? If you're so proud that we make 56% of the students' population, why do these 56 of the students suffer at the hands of your staff and peers? Also, if 56% of students are people of color, why are there few to no teachers of color in your district? Educators that are not white do not have to be Spanish teachers, if you were not aware. You want to show off the percentage as if it means anything if you do not protect these students. I want to ask you to ask yourself this. Are you proud that 56% of your students are traumatized by your negligence and failure of providing consequences to racism? Lastly, US news report that in the class of 2017-2018, Black people made upon 3% of the student population at Los Al High. I want you to know that this 3% remembers everything. Here is what you can do for all of your students. Start by hiring more educators of color. Create an African American studies course for your students. Assign mandatory assemblies where you can discuss racial matters and consequences to racial matters. Follow through on these consequences. Racial violence is dangerous. There is no room for it anywhere, especially in the education system. It saddens me that after 10 years, there has been no change. I am hopeful that new generations do not have to suffer in this district. Moving forward, if you cannot make changes during this racial climate, do not ever speak of George Floyd's name. Steve Miller. In light of current events in our country and around the world, now is a great time to begin implementing systems and curriculum be part of the solution. Adopting ethnic studies would be a great start to moving in a direction that teaches kids about the backgrounds of their peers and others in the community. We currently have an environment where we dedicate a month to Black history, when it is all reality, Black history is an American history. While I'm not discrediting the importance of this month, it is imperative we teach kids the truth about how African American community has been treated for 400 years and the implications it has today. Our community is becoming more and more diverse, and we have a responsibility to teach our children what is and is not truth. I believe the more one knows about the history of a race, they are more inclined to be empathetic and kind to everyone. As the father of an 8-year-old daughter going into 3rd grade at McGaw, I am concerned of the stories that I hear from current former students, particularly minorities. Not only are these stories horrific, but they create an environment of defeat for many, even those not directly affected. We teach my daughter to be the voice of reason and to stand up for the right over wrong. This includes racial injustices she may see or hear from her friends or peers. She needs to have the confidence to do this from a teacher and administrator standpoint, that she is merely doing what is right. Clearly, this is not something that will change overnight, nor it is something that can be changed just at school. But educating our children on ethics, the important part that each race has played in America, and the most importantly, the truth of effects it took on each community, we will have a better tomorrow. As we navigate through all of the unrest, it is a great time to pause, listen, and learn. I know my perspective is constantly evolving in a positive way, as my compassion for all people continues to grow. Thank you for your time.
Madam President, do you mind suddenly realizing that this can be difficult for one person to read?
Yes.
Can I give Ms. D'Angelo a break? You can get a drink of water, and I'll
Yes.
Read maybe the next 5 or 6.
That is fine. And I was
it's
just
very difficult for one person to read all of these.
Because we just told you, right before the board meeting here, Tina, you read this. So yes, go right ahead, yeah.
Apologize, but I want to help out. So the next message comes from Bill and Christina Shafton. We write to request that the Los Alamitos Board of Education immediately terminate its relationship with advisor Dr. Jeff Barkey. His inflammatory social media post does not reflect the values of this community. He is free to express his views to his heart's content, and the board should be free to find a consultant that supports its teachers, supports equal access to education regardless of race, creed, religion, or political party. We need professionals with a strong regard for a broad expression of views, not someone who vilifies or name calls because he disagrees with a teacher. We must do better, and the board has an opportunity to lead by example. The next public comment is from Whitney McIntyre Miller. For the last year and a half, I've been part of the Los Alamitos Human Relations Task Force. I've been encouraged by the district's support of our work and was even more encouraged by Dr. Pulver's email last week condemning acts of violence and hate. We see protests around our country, around our globe, and most importantly at our high school. Our students are joining together to support Black lives and to stand up to the incidents of racism, discrimination, and violence. We need to join them. We need to move our district to become one that is not just not racist, but actively anti-racist. We can do this in several ways. First, I ask you to support our students by joining several Orange County districts and Los Angeles Unified to adopt resolution number 1920-3353 and require ethnic studies as a graduation requirement for all district students. Ethnic studies is essential for providing our children with the well-rounded education of which Los Al prides itself. Ethnic studies does this by prioritizing the understanding of histories, perspectives, and experiences that inform racial, gender, and cultural identities, and is essential for the global citizens we aim to produce. Second, I urge you to support our teachers by preparing them in anti-racist teaching and disciplinary processes. We can do this providing trainings and professional development that focuses on restorative practices, trauma-induced teaching, and anti-racist pedagogy. We can give teachers the space they need to understand their own role and bring in an anti-racist lens into the classroom, and then giving them the tools to teach these techniques to our students. Finally, I implore you to examine our hiring practices and engage in active recruitment and hiring of teachers and district leaders of color. Teachers and administrators of color are more likely to serve as advocates to our students of color and to confront issues of racism in their teaching. It is essential for us to actively recruit and hire these leaders to ensure that the work we say we want to do is the work that we show we are doing. Los Alamitos Unified has shown that it wants to do better. Now is the time that we can build on the momentum of our communities, our country, and the world to support Black youth and to support anti-racist policies and practices for all of our students of color. We can do better together. The next public comment is from Chad Smith. We are at a watershed moment in history. As parents and educators, we need to take this opportunity and give it the true weight this moment deserves. This is hundreds of years in the making. We need to finally teach the truth about the country's history. We need to finally teach the history of all of us. We need to have full representation in our classrooms. I'm a 50-year-old white man who grew up in Long Beach and spent 20 years in New York City. I'm raising 2 children that very well may go to Los Al in a few years. I want them to come home and to tell me things that they learned in school that I had no idea occurred. When I went to NYU and took Black theater studies, I began to scrape the surface and learn about the history of this world and this country. That was not accessible for me in high school. And it wasn't because I went to all-white school. I went to Polytechnic, a wonderful, diverse high school that I loved. It's because I learned that whitewashed history, the history that overlooked the deplorable actions of our forefathers, the legal murder of a single people, and acts that would be considered terrorists if not for skin color. We need to open the wounds of our country so the poison can find its way out. That happens with the discovery of truth of our youth. We need to teach about the human race, not about our race. We need to teach the world's views, not just our view. Knowledge, history from more than one viewpoint, the ability to call out wrong and injustices for what they are. These are tools of learning that we need to embrace and not shy away from because it is hard to talk about or makes us uncomfortable. Please start by adopting Resolution 1920-3353, Ethnic Studies Requirement. Use the Teaching for Black Lives as a resource. It is already in your possession. Use it. Please teach our teachers to handle and cope with questions that they'll be asked of them. And please open your doors to teachers of color and LGBTQ identified. Thank you for your time in this matter. The next comment is from Dana Fapusa. I'm a concerned parent with 4 kids who have either attended or currently attending schools in the district. I am horrified to hear of a social media page where current and former students are posting their experiences while attending various LoSal district schools and how they were mistreated not only by other students and or staff, but when they tried to report it, very little or no action was taken to protect the students. What are you planning to do differently this year? The next message is, or public comment, is from Trini Jimenez. Dear board members, as parents of two current LAUSD students, taxpayer, voter, and actively involved member of our school district family, I'm writing to implore you to take positive action in responding to what national protests are clearly communicating to all of us. It's time for meaningful change in every institution and to ensure that racial injustice is not tolerated in any aspect of American life. What better place to teach fairness, inclusivity, and respect for all, regardless of race, than in our local school districts? I applaud Dr. Andrew Pulver and the school board for the recent statement condemning all acts of hate and violence. However, it's time for the school district to move beyond words and to put board policies in place that directly address inclusion, diversity, and a history that values all students. As Dr. Pulver stated, 56% of our students are people of color. 56% of Los Alamitos Unified School District students are people of color. This is an amazing number, and it begs several questions. Is the number reflected in the teaching staff in Los Alamitos? It is not. Is the number reflected in the administrative leadership of the school district? It is not. Is the number reflected in the school board itself? It is not. I urge you to implement policies that speak to the needs of all students, including the 56% that comprise the majority of Los Alamitos students. Some examples may include: 1, adoption of ethnic studies as a graduation requirement, as many other school districts have already done. This is one tool in teaching our youth the richness and value of our nation's diversity. 2, professional development and ongoing training to support teachers in anti-racist pedagogy, implicit bias, disciplinary practices, etc. 3, active recruitment and hiring of teachers and district administrators of color. 56% of LoSal students still do not see themselves reflected in a meaningful way in district leadership. Creation of a task force was one thing, but actually implementing recommendations into board policies that speak to inclusivity, diversity, and the needs of all students is yet another. I hope you hold yourselves true to your recent statement and that you are to be a steadfast ally in helping all of the young people learn about and oppose the plague of persistent injustice. Again, I implore you to move beyond words, and actions now would speak volumes to this 56% of students and their parents. Thank you. The next one is from John Miller, excuse me. First, Black Lives Matter. Second, I say this in the following comments as a straight, white, cisgendered man. I have been helpful about the district's work in the wake of the derogatory public comments made by the McGaw principal last year. I applauded the development of Human Relations Task Force, and more recently, they have been further encouraged by Dr. Pulver's email last week condemning acts of violence and hate. Protests have erupted not only around our country, but around our globe, in our local communities, and at Los Alamitos High School. Our students are joining together to support Black lives and to stand up to the incidents of racism, discrimination, and violence. History shows that the youth of our society tend to have their eyes and ears open to social change issues and advocates for this change long before we as adults do. It is our responsibility to listen to them, support them, and join them to become actively anti-racist and not just non-racist. It's our civil obligation to do so. We can start this process in our community by doing the following. 1, I ask you to support our students by joining several Orange County districts in LA Unified, Los Angeles Unified to adopt Resolution 1920-3353 and require ethnic studies as a graduation requirement for all district students. Ethnic studies is essential for providing our children with well-rounded education on which LoSal prides itself. Ethnic studies does this by prioritizing the understandings of histories, perspectives, and experiences that inform racial, gender, and cultural identities, and is essential for the global citizens we aim to produce. 2, I urge you to support our teachers by preparing them in anti-racist teaching and disciplinary practices. We can do this by providing trainings and professional development that focus on restorative practices, trauma-induced teaching, and anti-racist pedagogy. We can give teachers the space they need to understand their own role and bring in an anti-racist lens into the classroom, and then giving them the tools to teach these techniques to our students. Third, I implore you to examine our hiring practices and engage in active recruitment and hiring of teachers and district leaders of color. Teachers and administrators of color are more likely to serve as advocates to our students of color and to confront issues of racism in their teaching. This is essential. Los Al Unified has shown that it wants to do better, and it's the time to do better. We can seize the opportunity to build on the momentum we see before us to support Black youth and to support anti-racist policies and practices for our students of color. We can be better together. We can do better together. Next comment is from Neil Pardazzani. We'd like to voice our strong suggestion and endorsement that the district not only continue the great work to date around ensuring equality in education for all Los Alamitos Unified School District, but also enact additional measures to enhance our district's capabilities in this space. Given the diversity of our student family base, it's critical that everyone is able to and feels they are able to receive a quality and unbiased experience in education. We have shown leadership as a district on so many topics. This should be one we prioritize as well. Let's redouble our efforts in this domain. With district's leadership, we have done the basics and easy stuff. It's now time to tackle the more tricky issues which sit behind the surface and will take time and thoughtful effort to address. Namely, we would like the district to consider rapid adoption of these specific issues. 1, active recruitment, hiring, and development of teachers and district leaders from diverse backgrounds. Diverse teachers are more likely to provide culturally relevant teaching, hold high expectations, confront issues of equality through teaching, and serve as advocates for children of color with these practices leading to improved children's learning. Let's publish our progress regularly. 2, professional development and ongoing training to support teachers in confronting and addressing hidden bias which may inhibit equality in teaching for all our students. Many behaviors, beliefs, which have been trained over the years need to be reassessed. This is not a one and done training. This is an ongoing effort that needs to be tackled through training, dialogue, and evaluation. 3, let's join a growing number of local districts to incorporate ethnic studies into curriculum and requirements. Let's be inspired by Resolution 1920-3353, ethnic studies requirements, and figure out how to best incorporate these objectives into what is done in Los Alamitos Unified. Clearly, COVID presents a set of near-term challenges, but these are initiatives we should be deliberating and implementing in parallel. Please let us know how we can be part of the solution. Best regards, Neil and Farnaz. The next comment is from Justin Katner. This week, we saw our Los Alamitos students lead, organizing in peaceful protests, standing in solidarity for Black lives. We're also hearing student stories. They quote a website of Instagram, Los Al Can't Silence Us, and experiences in our Los Alamitos schools, their stories of racism, discrimination, xenophobia, and physical and emotional violence. We're grateful for the superintendent, Dr. Andrew Pulver, and the school board members in which they sent out last week a statement condemning all acts of hate and violence. We're here to ask for the school district to honor their statement for inclusion and the safety of all children, include our Black youth, and to move beyond words to action with these specific action items. 1, adoption of Resolution 1920-3353, ethnic studies requirement. We ask for the district to join a growing number of local districts, Anaheim Union, Anaheim City, Rancho, and LA USD, and follow the state's recommendation to require ethnic studies for graduation requirements. As a Los Alamitos community, we came together over a year ago and purchased for the district Teaching for Black Lives, a resource guide specifically created to honor Black lives and address anti-Black racism. We asked for the book to be taken off the district shelves and to be used immediately. 2, professional development and ongoing training to support teachers in anti-racist pedagogy and disciplinary practices. The law enforcement officer who has been charged with murdering George Floyd and the other cops who witnessed it were all once students in someone's classrooms. Our children see the violence around them. They want to talk about what they see and how they feel, and our teachers need support to be trained to engage in trauma-induced teaching and anti-racist pedagogy. 3, active recruitment and hiring of teachers and district leaders of color. The research is robust. Teachers of color are more likely to provide culturally relevant teaching, hold high expectations, confront issues of racism through teaching, and serve as advocates for children of color, with these practices leading to improved children's learning. The next public comment is from Jennifer Olay. My son has been bullied and picked on since 6th grade, most of which was swept under the rug with the guise of boys will be boys type excuses. and minimal consequences to the bully, which exasperated the situation, as the bully knew there were no real consequences. This year, he was a freshman. He got bullied and actually physically injured. All the bully got was an in-school suspension. My son fell and hit his head, which thank goodness didn't result in a head injury or death. Kids are not taken seriously when they tell administrators they are being bullied, and teachers shrug it off. For a school district that has a zero-tolerance bullying stance, I call your bluff. My son was in Long Beach School District until 5th grade, and if ever had a problem, it was addressed immediately with harsh consequences. No one wants to say anything, and I didn't in fear of my sons dealing with the repercussions, but enough is enough. Is it going to take a kid seriously injured, death, or suicide for you to take our children seriously? I pretty much said it all on the topic, but enough is enough. If the district has a zero-tolerance stance, then implement it. Otherwise, you're all tolerant. Please do not take this lightly. We do not want to see a death, injury, or suicide due to bullying. Kids are suffering mentally, emotionally, and physically due to bullying. The school district should feel the weight of these children's plight on their shoulders. The next public comment is from Amy Hampf. In the wake of the murder of George Floyd by police, and at this time of the national and worldwide reckoning with institutional racism that persists in America, I call on the board of Los Alamitos Unified School District to be better, to do better, and to lead by example. My child attends McGaw Elementary, which continues to model unquestioning glorification of police and military. Example, at assemblies and with daily patriotic songs, without mention of the repeated atrocities committed by these institutions. I call on the board to honor its recent statement regarding the inclusion and safety of all Los Alamitos Unified School District students, and to move beyond words and to take the following actions. 1, adopt Resolution 1920-3353. I request the district to join a growing number of local districts and follow the state's recommendation to require ethnic studies for graduation requirements. 2, provide professional development and ongoing training to support teachers and administrators in anti-racist pedagogy and disciplinary practices. 3, actively recruit, hire, and promote teachers and district leaders of color so that the demographics of our teachers and administrators more closely resemble those of our students. Research shows that the students who are exposed to teachers of their own race, ethnicity in elementary school are more likely to graduate high school, go on to college, and earn a college degree. The next public comment is from Kenneth Hashida, MD. School health programs have received relatively poor priority and funding from federal, state, and county agencies for decades. Now, federal, state, and county authorities are suggesting that schools reopen during the COVID-19 pandemic without provision of health guidelines that explain recommended processes. Instead, local school boards, districts, and sites are left to fend on their own without funding for COVID-19 relief. Asking for a local school board to determine these plans is made even more difficult by ongoing changes in leadership at the Orange County Healthcare Agency. Last night, the Orange County Register reported that the County of Orange Health officer resigned due to politically motivated death threats that put her family, her 3 young children, and her own life at risk. These threats directly and negatively impact the ability of the school district. The OCHCA, epidemiology, and case-specific information are needed at the municipal and school district level in order to tailor the district-wide and school site-specific interventions. These interventions should assess risks of community-level transmissions. However, the instability of the Orange County Healthcare Agency's leadership over the past 4 months has negatively impacted the ability of Orange County Department of Education to formulate policies based upon open meetings and discussions with experts in epidemiology, data science, infectious disease, and pediatrics. In reviewing a book published by Chicago Public Health in November of 1918, the city of Chicago was faced with a pandemic influenza outbreak that threatened the well-being of public schools. Chicago convened a commission on the outbreak and tasked the commission with evaluation of local policies to protect citizens, business, the city, children, and the school systems. The book describes that 1 doctor and 1 nurse was assigned to each and every public school in order to screen all children and personnel entering the school site during the epidemic. If Chicago in 1918 prioritized children and education by placing licensed nurses and doctors in each school site every day to perform daily examinations of children during the school day, why is it that in 2020, during this public health emergency, school, nursing, and student health positions are dramatically underfunded by federal, state, and county authorities? At a minimum, our community needs to convene a task force or a commission on COVID-19 local response in order to study these issues at the ripple effects on city government. Johns Hopkins University Bloomberg School of Public Health issued recommendations to municipal governments in mid-March 2020 regarding the need to convene these types of expert committees. The children of our committee should receive the highest levels of protection. The school board is encouraged to convene a commission to define the biological risk due to communicable diseases in objective, clinical, and scientific terms, and B, to propose countermeasures that adopt to the orders by the county health program and the county Department of Education. The next public comment is from Jennifer Cantor. I was proud to see so many families protesting peacefully this last week in support of Black Lives Matter. Thank you to Superintendent Pulver and the school board for your statement condemning acts of hate and violence. However, the student stories recently submitted to Instagram saddened our mixed race family. My husband and I are Los Al alumni. I was a member of Griffins with a mission in the 1990s, and so to be honest, none of these students' complaints surprise us. It angers me that as a society, we are still dealing with these issues. But on a local level, the appearance of apathy and exclusion on the part of some administrators and staff and outright hostility from students towards marginalized peers is alarming. Our district should not be held responsible for the failure of some local parents to raise intellectually curious, inclusive, and kind citizens. However, it is the district's responsibility to foster and support an environment where all students are welcome, feel heard, and actively responded to when necessary, and that they feel safe while on campus. Enough is enough. Why does the climate on our campuses seem to be getting worse in the last 20 years? Please adopt 1. Resolution number 1920-3353, Ethnic Studies Requirement, which mirrors requirements already in place in other districts. 2. Provide professional development and ongoing training to support teachers in anti-racist pedagogy and disciplinary practices. And 3. Actively recruit and hire teachers and district leaders of color. Thank you. The next public comment is from Dee Black and Alicia Legas. During this past week, our family has watched as our country mourns the mistreatment of people of color in our communities. We have also witnessed our Los Alamitos students lead, organizing in peaceful protests, standing in solidarity for Black lives. We have personally witnessed racism in the school district and are now hearing student stories of racism on Instagram. The idea that any student would have experiences in our Los Alamitos schools with little support to combat blatant racism, discrimination, xenophobia, and physical and emotional violence is unacceptable. Every member of this community must stand against these behaviors, especially in our schools where all children should feel safe. We're grateful for the superintendent, Dr. Andrew Pulver, and the school board members in which they sent out last week a statement condemning all acts of hate and violence. We're here to ask for the school district to honor their statement for inclusion and the safety of all children, include our Black youth, and to move beyond words to actions with these 3 specific action items. 1. Adoption of Resolution 1920-3353, Ethnic Studies Requirement. We ask for the district to join a growing number of local districts, Anaheim Union, Anaheim City, Rancho, and Los Angeles Unified School District, and to follow the state's recommendation to require ethnic studies for graduation requirements. As a Los Alamitos community, we came together over a year ago and purchased the district Teaching for Black Lives, a resource-guided specific, created to honor Black lives and address anti-Black racism. We asked for the book to be taken off the district shelves and to be used immediately. 2. Professional development and ongoing training to support teachers in anti-racist pedagogy and disciplinary practices. The law enforcement officer who's been charged with murdering George Floyd and other cops who witnessed it were all once students in someone's classrooms. Our children see the violence around them. They want to talk about what they see and how they feel, and our teachers need support to be trained to engage in trauma-induced teaching and anti-racist pedagogy. 3. Active recruitment and hiring of teachers and district leaders of color. The research is robust. Teachers of color are more likely to provide culturally relevant teaching, hold high expectations, confront issues of racism through teaching, and serve as advocates for children of color, with these practices leading to improved children's learning. This past year, you've had 3 core organizational positions that could have been filled with professionals of color that have extensive experience in human relations, inclusion, and equity. These professionals could have brought a different perspective and challenged the existing organizational culture. Instead, you chose candidates that duplicated the existing demographics and experiences of your current organization and leadership team. Professionals who demonstrate leadership skills that will change you and bring you a different perspective are exactly the type of people you should be actively recruiting to strengthen your leadership team in Los Alamitos Unified. Feeling uncomfortable with someone's perspective is precisely what you need in order to serve the members of this district who are not currently being represented or supported due to their race, religion, or sexual orientation. If community leaders of color are not applying for the leadership positions in your organization, you need to ask yourself why and make the need organizational changes to serve the students and families in your district that deserve this representation. Please make this a critical goal and approach it as if this is the only legacy you will leave this community. Thank you for your time and for allowing us to speak openly. Dee Black and Alicia Legas. Last public comment is from Natalie Chang. We are grateful that Superintendent Dr. Andrew Pulver and the school board sent out a statement condemning all acts of hate and violence last week. We are here to ask that the school district honor their statement for inclusion and the safety of all children, include our Black youth, and to move beyond words to action with 3 specific action items. 1, adoption of Resolution 1920-3353, ethnic studies requirement. We ask for the district to grow in a growing number of local districts: Anaheim Union, Anaheim City, Rancho, and Los Angeles. They use LAUSD, and I didn't want that to be confused. And follow the state's recommendation to require ethnic studies for graduation requirements. As a Los Alamitos community, we came together over a year ago and purchased for the district Teaching for Black Lives, a resource guide specifically created to honor Black lives and to address anti-Black racism. We asked for the book to be taken off the district shelves and to be used immediately. 2, professional development and ongoing training to support teachers in anti-racist pedagogy and disciplinary practices. The law enforcement officer who has been charged with murdering George Floyd and the other officers who witnessed it were all once students in someone's classrooms. Our children see the violence around them, they want to talk, and they want to see how they feel. And our teachers need support to be trained to engage in trauma-induced teaching and anti-racist pedagogy. 3, active recruitment and hiring of teachers and district leaders of color. More than 56% of our students are people of color. The research is robust. Teachers of color are more likely to provide culturally relevant teaching, hold high expectations, confront issues of racism through teaching, and to serve as advocates for children of color, with these practices leading to improved children's learning. Thank you for your consideration. That concludes the public comments.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Pulver and Ms. D'Angelo, for reading. I appreciate that. It just took a while, but that's okay. The voices should be heard. And we appreciate all the people who sent in comments. Okay, now we're on to information and presentations. I do just want to reiterate that if it isn't an agendized item, the board by law is not supposed to make a comment, but I would like everyone to know that we have copies of these. We have received other emails. We have listened to people, and we will consider it at a future time. Okay, thank you so much. Now we're on to presentation of supplemental materials. Mrs. Reed.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight we're bringing forward Music Play Online. It's a supplemental material for our current elementary general music education program, and it allows our teachers to access all of the curriculums, digital resources, and licensed music pieces online. Previously, our teachers had an iPod when we originally bought the program, where we downloaded all of the CDs onto the iPod, and that's really since no longer serves its purpose, especially when planning digitally. So we would like to bring this forward for a 30-day preview to allow our general music teachers to access Music Play Online.
Thank you. And then presentation of textbooks.
Thank you.
And will the music be on display?
If anyone would like to view the music, they could contact the district office and we could get them access to Music Play Online.
Okay, thank you. And then presentation of textbooks.
Thank you. Tonight we're bringing forward 2 textbooks for a 30-day public preview. The first one is STEM Scopes, which will serve as the middle school science adoptions for grades 6th, 7th, and 8th. We did move to an integrated middle school science program 2 years ago, and so this will be an NGSS-aligned curricular strand that will meet that goal for our teachers, and so it will be on display for the next 30 days. There was an extensive pilot and review process. Our middle school teachers actually piloted 3 sets of curriculum over the past year and a half of school to finally make the recommendation of STEM scopes. In addition, we're bringing forward BioZone, which will be used for our Los Alamitos High School AP biology class, as many of the AP classes are changing their College Board requirements. Biology was one of those last school year, and so this is an updated version of a textbook to help prepare our students to adequately pass that very rigorous exam.
Thank you. Okay, we're on to our consent calendar. Do we have any pulls? I believe Diana wanted to pull.
I'd like to pull 10D.
10D. Are there any other pulls? Okay, then I will entertain a motion of approval for 10A through C and E through GG.
I move approval.
Second. Okay, is there any, items on the consent calendar are considered normal and usual in nature, and we usually vote on them all at once. So all those, is there any questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously, 5-0. And then 10D is ratification of approval to submit our Career Technical Education Incentive Grant.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this as presented.
I second.
Okay, any comments?
Yes, I just pulled this just because I really want to make sure that we highlight that our options for our students at Los Alamitos High School are very important to us. And so we look at different ways that we can engage students. And so, you know, I think that sometimes people hear things that, or have preconceived ideas that we want all of our children to just take a 4-year college route and that's what their next step should be. And we know that one size doesn't fit all for all students. We want all students to have all options that are available to them. But the CTE Education Incentive Grant gives us those opportunities to offer other things to students as well. And so I'm just excited that we are continuing down that road.
Yeah, great.
Dr. Pulver, do you want to add anything?
No, well, I guess yes. I don't never shy away. I think you really did touch on it, that when we talk about trying to provide unlimited opportunities for students, this is just another way that I think sometimes the public hasn't realized how the board has evolved our priority goals. And it really is not just about AP, as some people sometimes think. It is also about trying to provide access to career technical education for our students, or the goal to have students take a CTE pathway or course, or even a dual enrollment course. We just met with our local Cerritos College as well. And so really trying to expand the different offerings. It's really about knowing that their end game shouldn't be here at Los Alamitos Unified School District, that we're really preparing them for what's next beyond 12th grade. And so we want them to continue to be able to have opportunities in their next stage. And so this is just another way to connect some of our kids and to help them prepare for college and career success.
Okay, great. Okay, any other comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously, 5-0. We're on to our action item. We have our second reading and final approval of the new board policy, transfer of funds and deletion of administration regulations 3110, which is transfer of funds between categories and amendments. Dr. Nguyen, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, so this basically reflects the ECHO 42600 that will allow the board to give the school district to move the money between funds as we close the year end, which was going to be happening in July and August, so that we can move around funds as we have other obligations as required.
Right, when we get deferrals from the state, we have to be creative with what we have. Sometimes we need to do things like this.
Yes.
Okay, may I have a motion for approval?
Move approval.
I'll second.
Are there any comments or changes? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Then we have second reading and final approval of revised board policy 3551, Food Services Operation Cafeteria Fund. Dr. Nguyen.
Yes, so this new revision reflects the new SB 265 that students with unpaid meal balances cannot be denied a reimbursable meal, meaning that we cannot offer them an alternate meal, that they should be receiving the same meal as a paid student as well. So this will reflect this. for the policy.
Okay, I'd just like to make a comment that there were changes in the law, so we're updating our policy. We always feed our kids. I don't want someone to think that we're not feeding our children. So may I
Right,
please-
what you're basically saying is our practice changed well before updating the board policy.
Yes. But we're being compliant here. May I please have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0 unanimously. Then we have second reading and final approval of revised board policy 6117, interdistrict attendance. Dr. Fraser.
Thank you, Madam President. This is the second reading and final approval of revised board policy 5117, interdistrict attendance. This policy was being updated based on the CSBA's policy guide sheet that is distributed throughout the school year. This update reflects the legal requirement AB 1127 for districts to provide transportation assistance to a student receiving an interdistrict transfer who is eligible for free and reduced price meals and is a child of an active duty military parent, guardian, or victim of bullying. This update also reflects the educational code requirement that allows permits to be in effect for 5 years, not one, without being renewed on a yearly basis. And just a side note as well, the statement, the superintendent or designee may limit the number of student transfers out of the district on an annual basis based on enrollment, financial, and other factors as determined by the superintendent or designee, was not included in the first reading, but is recommended to be, was added.
Okay, thank you. May I please have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, 5-0. And can you tell we're updating our policies? Approval of first reading and revised board policy 1312.3, uniform complaint procedures. Dr. Fraser.
Thank you, Madam President. This is the first reading to update board policy 1312.3, uniform complaint procedures. Again, this policy is being updated based on the CSBA's policy guide sheet. This policy is also being updated based on the recommendation of the Orange County Department of Education. It is highly recommended we provide CDE with our board policy that is current and reflects the most recent legislation and policy changes. Administrative regulations will be updated as well. The uniform complaint will be in the hands of the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, that's me, and that's been updated in the policy as well.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the first reading.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion, any changes, any questions?
Mrs. Catulli, since we're doing so many policies right now, do you just want to explain a little bit about how that process works?
Okay, our board policies is basically a very thick book that explains how we run the school district. And we get our policies basically usually from legislation and laws from the state, and how we have to go about doing all sorts of things within the school district as a business. And this is like we have in writing how we handle things, how we deal with things, how we do things. And I can't even, there are thousands of them. Yeah, there's a lot of them. And it's very hard to keep up on them all the time and to know the new changes in the law. So we actually belong through California School Boards Association to a service called GAMUT, that every time there is a law change in Sacramento that would affect us locally, they send us a notification saying you need to update this board policy and this board policy. And so we're just cleaning house. We're trying to, because we had nothing else to do. We didn't have to worry about trying to reopen our schools and how to, get every child, safe and secure on campus and meet every person's need. And I'm not being facetious, because those are things that are very important, what we need to do. But we also have to take care of our board policies. So
And then-
they are kind of dry.
They are. And then we usually have a first reading so that we can read it, put it out to the public, and make any comments or questions, and then come back and have a second reading, and that's when we typically approve it. So it is out in the public multiple times.
Yeah, and we have made changes to policies when we have read them as a board and have had either issues or suggestions, or felt that it needed to also do this, can we put this in here? But This particular one, I'm thinking not, but yeah. Thank you for bringing that up, Mrs. Hill, because we are kind of look like talking heads here. So I have a motion and a second, and we had a great discussion on board policies in general. Is there anything else anyone else would like to say? Okay, all those in favor for the first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0 unanimously. Now we have approval of a memorandum of understanding, I'm so used to calling them MOUs and not articulating what they are, between the district and the Anaheim Regional Medical Center, New Lung. Dr. Fraser.
Thank you, Madam President. I will use MOU. So this MOU is for our cessation classes that are offered to students as an alternative to suspension when they are in possession of nicotine products during the school day. So they are required, the classes are offered monthly, and they're to go to 4 one-hour sessions. And if they complete, the classes are taught by tobacco cessation specialists from New Lung. And when the students complete the classes successfully, all 4, they receive a certificate of completion.
Okay, right. And this obviously deals with the health of our youth. May I have a motion?
I move approval.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0 unanimously. Now we need to acknowledge the receipt of a claim and reject the claim in compliance with Government Code Section 911-16 and 945. Dr. Nguyen.
Yes, so we receive a claim on behalf of DK by their attorney, Gary Fields, and we consulted with our insurance company, Keenan, and they have recommended us to go ahead and the board to go ahead and reject the claim at this time.
Okay, this is part of a procedure dealing with situations like that. May I please have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second. Okay, is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0 unanimously. We're now on to our approval of warrants. Warrants is our checkbook, and we get to read where all the checks goes. And if we have any questions on why we paid a specific vendor a specific amount of money, they answer us. So I will entertain a motion for approval.
Move approval.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0 unanimously. And even though we've been sitting through COVID-19 in our own house all by ourselves, or just obviously just with our family, we still continue to get donations from our community. We are so appreciative. We're so thankful, and it's really kind of overwhelming. And we appreciate the support we just get from our community. You guys enrich and enhance that educational experience of our students so much, you have really no idea. And so I think that is it for this time. And I believe our total is over $500,000 now. Yeah, 553,000. So thank you so much for our community. May I please have a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the donations as presented.
I would like to second that, and I would like to say thank you to our friends groups.
Yeah.
I happened upon a friends group here a couple of weeks ago that was socially distancing in a driveway. I was out walking one evening, and they were trying to plan for the next school year. And I just realized all of these, this is the time of year that most all of us, at least my pockets always get a lot lighter going to the Friends of Groups functions. And so all those things were canceled. There were a lot of things done virtually. And I know that a lot of them are concerned, just like we're dealing with budget concerns, they're concerned as well, since they've not had the funding. Although we've got quite a few donations tonight, I'm glad to see that, the impacts for their budgets. But yeah, thank you to those folks and those that are stepping up, not knowing what they're getting into for next year.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0 unanimously. We usually take our classified and certificated reports together. Dr. Fraser, do you have any comments?
Now, Madam President, like always, I'll combo the two and bring forward the classified and certificated personnel reports as presented.
Thank you. May I have a motion?
Move approval.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0 unanimously. We're now on to communication. Mrs. Russell, I'll start with you. I always say, whoever I ask always looks surprised. It's one of you two usually.
Well, I had the distinct pleasure of taking a tour of the high school construction where we got to see our beautiful pool. It's really coming about. It's going to be great. And then we got to go see where the three-story building was, but it just seemed to be like mountains of dirt. And they showed us, this is going to be here, and then they showed us pictures of which direction we were facing and everything. It's kind of hard for me to walk on that, but it was very interesting, and we got to wear our hard hats and our vests, and be socially distanced and wear a mask and all of that. So, but I just want to say, I'm so grateful that we have our construction going on and they're able to keep going even during all our crisis and everything. And thanks to all the workers for the great job they're doing too. And the other thing, the SELPA, which I'm on the board, I just is putting out a series of videos for our instructional aides. And they just sent one to us the other day. It was called Teaching Social Reciprocation. So these are individuals that deal with students, and they're trying to help them do that. So this is just the first in the series that they're going to be doing. So it's helpful during this time to be able to have that kind of communication. And I just want to say thanks to everyone who's come up with some kind of an activity to honor our graduates. And hopefully we'll get to have an in-person ceremony down the line. And thanks to all the community for trying to keep our children safe by, having them stay at home and do social distancing and not come to school. I know it's been very difficult, but the kids are all happy to be out of school right now. Let me tell you, they're out riding their bikes, and but they're getting exercises. They're still staying at home and everything like they're supposed to be, but they're always very still respectful in the community. So I want to thank them for that, and that's it.
Okay, Mr. Boyer.
I too got to tour the high school facilities, and I thank you for that. It was an impressive day to see. The pool is going to be awesome. I think they said the end of July. Meg's going to be the first one off the high dive.
Oh yeah, I'll do a full gainer with a half twist.
I want to know the Cappies Olympic gold medals.
Well, we could do that too.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, it was great to see. I'm trying to visualize that three-story building. I'm getting closer, and lots going on. I just want kudos to CJ and to all the staff. I just want to say these have been crazy. This has been. If Dr. Pulver had known a year ago he would be doing this and going through this, I would say he would have, Dr. Kropp was brilliant when she retired.
Yeah.
She made sure she gave you every opportunity to be in the right seat at the right time. And I see that our principal, Mr. Vlasic, has left. I wanted to thank him for coming and being here. I've heard so many good things in his being his first year. Dr. Stone as well. I think he and Dr. Kropp somehow had something figured out about getting out of here a year ago. But what he's done in terms of trying to keep things together. The parade was magnificent. Thanks for honoring RHA for doing that. What a great idea. It was great to go and see that crowd. When I left you on the bus to go and for you to lead the parade, and with our supervisor, Michelle Steele, and everything, as I walked back through the crowd, I happened across our student board member, Blake.
Oh, I saw him too.
And I got to talk to his family, and just it was just a wonderful thing, and then an opportunity to go park in front of a school and just watch the parade go by, and just kind of incognito. It's kind of fun to do that once in a while. Just cheer everybody by and see, and just to see the joy, because there have been so few moments for those folks, and all the things that were done at all levels for our kids, like the drive-by birthday parties, the drive-by things that I see all the different friends groups doing. Just want to celebrate that we still in this community do those things, and I've had people from other places just like Meg and I have been on several conference calls with Tom Unberg's office and Tyler Deep's office, and all I've learned in those conversations is they don't know what's going on in Sacramento, and like you said, the conversation is going to continue. It's just like yesterday's call about how we're going to open these schools up. So lots of decisions to be made as we move forward. What else did I want to say? That's it. I just this is a time for us to really work forward on things, and I want to thank you, Dr. Pulver, for your leadership as we work with our Human Relations Task Force. So glad that we've put that in the works, almost 2 years ago. And for those that serve on that, and then directing the resources. And then, as I talked with Dr. Pulver about the Griffins with a mission, what we can do to look at curriculum there, what we can do to revitalize that and meet the needs of our students as we move forward. So as a district, we're aware of these, there's just, things aren't perfect, we're better together. We do want unlimited possibilities. I know every board member here and everybody in our staff, that's what we strive for. And it's a work in progress, and we are better together. So it's my prayer and my hope that we'll continue to do that work this summer. And thank you for our curriculum over there. You have a tough job. I don't know how you put it all together, and for our teachers and staff that are trying to figure out how to live in this digital world as I am myself trying to work from home. I find it to be challenging as well. So, and thank you every board member here, because these are some tough times. We have some tough decisions to make on the budget. I hate that part of the job, but this too will pass, and we'll do it, and we'll make the best decisions together. So, thank you.
Mrs. Hill.
Oh, okay.
I know,
See, I was surprised.
Skipping around today. Keep you guys on your toes. Yeah.
So I got a couple things to say. One, I do want to say thank you to all the principals and everybody who went out of their way to make our students feel special, whether it was the middle school virtual awards, the McCullough choir performance that I watched one night, Friday night cooking dinner. Oak and McCullough also did an 8th grade celebration. So did Mid-Gaw do of their 5th graders. So they did a variety of different schools, and I reached for every one of those moments because it usually is such a celebratory time for us and such a time to connect with our students and our school community. The parade was amazing. Thank you for, I'm going to be very selfish, but I've never been in a parade before, so I was really excited. It was really fun. Mrs. Gattuli and I rode in the bus for a little bit, and they did a beautiful job, and they were so excited to be able to do that. So that was tremendous. And RHA, that was just an extraordinary idea, and everybody that pulled it off. And I don't know if anybody noticed afterwards, but I'd walked back to the parking lot to get my car, and I guess our ASB and Mrs. Speratos had put up vanity screens and had photographers out there, and so they were able to, the students were able to get that photograph in their cap and gown, and I thought that was really, really special as well. And then we also had a student who was on America's Got Talent. I'm just amazed at how many of our students I'm watching on television or YouTube or whatever else it may be. So it was wonderful. The tour of the high school, thank you very much for that. It's such a visual thing, and to be able to see that and the work, Dr. Nguyen, that your staff is doing, and CJ and Myra were such lovely hosts, and we've got some tremendous people and some characters too over there working. I really liked it. It was very enjoyable. I also had the opportunity, I don't know if anybody, hopefully people saw it, but we were able to put an ad in the newspaper congratulating our grads, and I had to do something. And so I made copies of these, and in my neighborhood, and then I made cookies, and I put them in little containers, and I took them around to the kids in my neighborhoods who I saw had signs. It was just, I had to do something personal, and some of those kids have been in, I saw them as little itty bitty guys going through. So that was really a joyful evening that I got to go around and do that and see some of our grads.
What kind of cookies were they?
Chocolate chip.
Oh, that's the good kind.
I'm kind of known for my chocolate chip cookies. So there are two serious things that I really, and I appreciate all of the work that everybody has done, but two serious things that I really wanted to say this evening is that we get a report, and we have an organization called Care Solace that we use as a mental health, I'm looking for the report on my phone because I forgot to print it out, that we use for mental health resources. And the increase in usage on that website has been dramatic over the last 3 months. And I hope people know that it's available to them and students know it's available to them, because I feel that there is a lot because of what we've had to go through. And I believe that we've done what we have needed to do to flatten the curve and do what we were asked by our leaders to be able to keep everybody safe. But I also look at the statistics on a daily basis, and I'm kind of not confused, but I look at that. If we look at deaths in Orange County, there has been nobody under the age of 25 who has passed in Orange County. There's been over 170 deaths, and that's terrible, but nobody under the age of 25. And we have 475,000 students that are out of school. And I hear stories on a daily basis from parents and grandparents about what families are going through. A grandfather today told me about his 3-year-old grandson that had been nonverbal, went through his IEP, was on the autism spectrum, started working with a therapist, occupational therapist, then really got into a group of 4 or 5 students, was really making incredible progress, and then had to stop. And now he's been home with a single father who has had to look after him. And I just think that there have been a lot of unintended consequences with these actions. And I hope, and I know that if I was a school board member in New York City, I'd probably have a very different lens than I have here in Orange County. But I hope that we have enough guidance that we can also make some decisions that work for our community and our students. And I think that we've done a lot of work, and we know what we should be doing, and we have precautions, and we also know what we need to do if we get back into a position that is harmful. But I think there are a lot of things that are happening to a lot of students, to a lot of people, that we're not being aware of. And I think those numbers, by looking at Care Solace, really, it brought it home to me and hearing those stories. So the work that we are doing and that Mrs. Reed is doing is tremendous to give options to our parents and to our community. And I just hope that we're able to keep moving forward with that. And then I went by the protest. I didn't want to get into their way, but I wanted to make sure everybody was safe, and that and I was so proud to see our students. And then it also just kind of also made me chuckle, because they all, they had stacks of water sitting next to them. So they were also, really well taken care of. And just every time somebody would drive by, they would try to engage, but in a really peaceful way. And that's what we're about, is being able to have our opinions and our voices heard, and appreciate everybody who sent in comments. And really, I'm so pleased that there seemed to be an element of respect and kindness in all of them, and only wanting better. And that's what we all want. So I told you it was a lot tonight, but thank you very much for giving me the time.
Yeah, no, our pleasure. Mrs. Davidson.
Well, I'd just like to echo all of the thank yous for the way that the administrators and staff and community really made the end of the year as celebratory as it could be, and by creating joy and the memories. And so I'd also like to really thank Mr. Vlasic, because as a first-year principal at the high school, he really has faced so many challenges, a lot of them very positive. That swimming pool, I think we need a big pool party as soon as it's ready. It's just going to be fabulous. There's so much going on, and it was really wonderful. A couple of Saturdays ago, the high school PTA gave him the HSA award, and there was a big parade, and he presented him the award on his lawn. But he said something in that moment that kind of struck me, and he said, "Sometimes I'm lonely." And I think that leadership can be really lonely, and the best intentions of our hearts aren't always seen. And I just really want to say to him, thank you, Mr. Vlasic. Thank you for taking on all that you've done, just as Dr. Pulver and everybody, and Dr. Fraser, everybody that's new. This has been a gigantic year in so many ways. And so I really thank you for all of that, and for always remembering in the midst of everything to try and find the joy for our kids. I also was at the protests, and I really, after tonight, I do have a bit of a heavy heart. The protests, those kids did such a fabulous job. I want to thank Chief Nunez, Los Alamitos Police Department, who for both days walked through the crowd and started at one end and said, I want you to know we're here for you. We want to keep you safe. We applaud you for what you're doing, and we are with you all the way. And then said, okay, but the people on the other side, I need them to know too. So he walked around the corner to the other side, and he did that for both days. And every police officer that went by waved. They said, we're just here to make you safe. And I want to also thank we finally met two of the organizers. They're juniors, and I didn't ask permission to use their names, so I won't, but two young women that will be juniors at the high school that did a fabulous job, just as Mrs. Hill was saying, to organize it, to have water, to make sure everybody was comfortable. And it was really a wonderful act of civil disobedience, just like the anti-gun violence protest at the high school was. And in this time of upheaval in our country, I think we all have to take hope when we see the young people standing up and speaking their minds. And I agree, tonight, it's really hard to not comment on what was said, but I really thank you and applaud you for coming to us with a message, with ideas, and with gratitude for what's been done ahead. And as a teacher of 25 years here, if I ever did anything, I didn't do it intentionally, and I'm sorry. I need to listen, we all need to listen, and we will listen, and we won't stuff it in a box somewhere. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Mrs. Davidson. Okay, it's been a busy time, even though, although I have said that if I have to do any more Zoom meetings, I might go sit next to somebody and protest, I don't know. But I've been to actually 2 ROP meetings since our last board meeting. And ROP, which is our Career Technical Consortium, we are very concerned about our budget. We have an incredible reserve. So we're fine. We have continued our discussions and our agreements with our 5 school districts that we're involved in. We have some real concerns about some of our classes that you really can't do virtually in a significant way. One of them is the preschool. We can teach our high school students lessons and early childhood development, but if the kids aren't there, that we have to know, when are the kids going to be allowed to come to school, and are the parents going to have their children go to a preschool? So that's like a big, we don't know, and it's across all the school districts. Auto body, it's really hard to do auto body, remotely. Culinary, another one, you want to cook the food, you don't want to watch somebody cook it, you can turn on the Food Channel to do that. So we are really looking at how to do things differently, how to do things better. Do we need to tweak curriculum? And then ROP has to work with the fact that there's 5 school districts, and each school district may reopen differently. So flexibility is our name. I've had an Orange County Zoom meeting with the other delegates through CSBA. I also talked with Tyler Deep's office and our congressional representative, Alan Lowenthal, who's very supportive. And he was actually, most of the time you make appointments, you don't really meet with the person. And Alan was there in his living room Zooming with us. So it was quite nice. The senior parade, I'm going to remember that the rest of my life, and I didn't graduate, so I can only hope that the graduates will really remember that. Oak and McCullough's virtual promotions were just wonderful. No, it isn't the same thing as walking across the stage, but each child was recognized. There was a picture there, and I was trying to read the quotes, and they would go sometimes too quickly. And I even enjoyed the 5th grade promotions, sometimes because you have family members there, it makes it nice. The tour of the high school, the construction, I have two friends down the street who are going to be sophomores next year, and they both play water polo. They're boy, girl, and they are so excited about the pool. They said, when we returned our books, we sneaked in and looked at the pool. I went, I'm not telling anybody, but I just told everybody. And they are so excited, and I said, you know, it's supposed to be finished by the end of the summer, and I don't know if the end of summer is August or September, but you'll be in that pool this coming up school year. So they're really excited about it. And then I read somebody made a comment about how we're not working on our 3-story building and all we're doing is digging holes and moving dirt. It's called foundation and cabling and plumbing and electrical. You have to dig holes and move mounds of dirt before you can build anything on top of it. And that's what we've been doing. So yeah, that's going to be impressive. I've attended the Orange County School Boards Association and the California School Boards Association budget seminars. None of them tells me anything I want to hear, including poor Nancy Yan, but it's just not very good. I also was able to help at the yearbook distribution at the high school, and that was really kind of fun because the kids drove through, and what I enjoyed most were the teachers reconnecting with their kids. It was like, here, oh, how you doing, da-da-da. It was, and I could tell that our staff misses our kids. They're not happy either. I went to Chris Velasquez's HSA. I thought how sensitive, empathic, and wonderful that the PTSA realized what a first year our principal had. Probably not paralleled anywhere. And he handled it with such grace, intelligence, and thought. So what more could we ask? And my closing comment, although I totally agree with many things that have been said by Mrs. Hill and Mrs. Davidson, is I have read 3 different versions, including the state's version, of their reopening plan for schools in California. My first gut reaction was, these people have never been in a classroom. These people do not know what happens in TK, nor do they know what happens in AP chemistry. These people who are coming up with these plans have never been in a classroom and have never taught anybody anything. And then my second thought was, and not only have they never been in a classroom, they've never been with a child, a student. So you could tell my utter frustration with it. And I know that we will follow guidelines because we really do care about the health and safety of our students. We do have medically compromised students. We probably have, I wouldn't call medically compromised staff, but I would say medically sensitive staff who have very, very legitimate concerns. And we need to take those things into consideration. And I've been misquoted several times, but if I had a magic wand, all our kids would be back in the classroom because the magic wand would get rid of COVID-19. And this is not a magic wand. So it is something I think everyone in our district truly wants for our students and staff. We want to get back to normal. I think it's the best way to educate kids. It's the healthiest way to educate kids. And we will get there as soon as we can. Not soon enough, but as soon as we can. Okay. With that, I'm going to actually take us out of open session and into closed session because we need to go back into closed session. And we'll take like a 5-minute recess for us to get ready for that. Thank you so much. Are we going to stay here? Whichever.